I am going to start recording this stream just in case so I can re-upload it later because it seems as though the audio is not getting fixed. It's I mean, T Monster right now says, um, God, I think because what I did was what I export uh the files, the video files that make up my entire UI. I exported them, so I exported them as MP4 files. MKV is a lot lighter, but MP4 is higher quality. So oh my god, that's great, awesome. And it was all because my Terabox drive just died. No. It was all because my Terabox drive died, and now I have to deal with this. That's great, awesome. Thanks OBS. I need a new computer. So since most of you couldn't hear all that, and by you I mean the chat, um, could you guys for the recording? Could you guys like TLDR what you guys said? Both C monsters.
TLDR,
Yeah,
yeah.
CGF and Zim.
I would say TLDR, Godzilla cannot be sympathetic and terrified in equal amounts. Even during the first film, Godzilla's actions vastly outweigh any sympathy that could be garnered towards him, despite how tragic his origins are. And the problem I have with Max Allo's point here is that it comes from a misreading of 54 as a whole and his feelings towards whether Godzilla can be faithful or not.
And then
Right.
TLDR, the statement does not apply to every single Godzilla movie because then it would just, for one, contradict itself, and for two, it only applies to like a very small amount, and even then, those sympathetic moments are like very minor scenes at most.
Yeah, and my TLDR would be that proportional in not Max. That was the term I was looking for. So Max Allo thinks that sympathy and terror can be directly proportional to each other, but it does not take into account the moral thresholds that Godzilla would be crossing with the destruction he commits, whether intentional or not. And the example I would present of such a thing would be Griffith in Berserk. He does commit some evil things prior to the eclipse, some questionable things, but you understand why he's doing it and you sympathize with why he would want that thing, such a thing like his kingdom. But ultimately, his act in the eclipse makes that kind of thing makes that kind of character completely irredeemable, because he violated so many moral thresholds in one day that he might as well be the devil himself. So, yeah, with Godzilla, you can't really do the directly proportional sympathy slash terror. You can't really do that. Anyways, I will continue this. So let's move on. Keep going.
70 years Godzilla has been a character. He's been many things. A hero, a villain, a pursuit, a CGI monster. Godzilla has always been a very complex character.
Let me pause right here. I'm sorry that we're doing this, but although Godzilla has been all of these things, he has not been all of these things at the same time. There is also a dipping into the it's I guess meta in the sense where he's going from like what is internal to the films themselves and their universe, as well as what's happening like the production and stuff like that, which I feel doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because Godzilla in the Godzilla films is not a rubber suit. Godzilla is an actual living thing there. So Godzilla's not meaning the two things that you're saying at the same time. And many of the things that he's saying are not mutually exclusive. Like there's so much crossing wires of points being made. And really, it's just a giant non sequitur.
Mm-hmm. I was also going to point out that character slash archetype inconsistencies are not equivalent to nuance or depth. This is a problem that he runs into quite a bit. But yeah, I don't remember how applicable this was in the Showa era, given how you described the Showa era could be watched, because the way I see it, like, I watch each movie independently. So, but with the Heisei era, it is like a more linear continuity. The Millennium era, I don't really know. That's a big question mark for me.
Yeah, I would say with the Millennium era, the best thing that you can do is that if you look at them by their directors, you can sort of see where there's like thematic through lines, especially like Megaguirus and the Kiryu saga, or 2000 on its own, or GMK on its own, Final Wars on its own. But I would generally say too, when it comes to Godzilla as a character, across the Millennium series, he is pretty consistent, besides from GMK being not an exception, but rather an exaggeration to a certain degree of his character. Whereas in the Heisei series, because it is a continuity, Godzilla's character is able to change and evolve more naturally. And with the Showa era, again, similar, but the nature of why those films were made the way they are is a product of their time.
Yeah. Unfortunate, that is, because I feel like they could have done much better, but who am I? I'm just a grifter. Anyway.
I don't have much to add. Yeah.
By the way, before we do, we might
Many
the
more.
stream
And we're
might
gonna take a
be
look
glitching the video out, just FYI, because it happened a while back, but I did manage to hear everything. So yeah, just wanted to. Tech difficulties, gotta love them. Anyway,
what makes Godzilla Godzilla? And more importantly, what makes a good Godzilla, a faithful Godzilla? You can have your serious Godzilla movies, things like -1, Return of Godzilla in '84. And you can have your admittedly very silly ones. Things like the gravity-defying dropkick in Godzilla vs. Megalon. And even sometimes they've been able to make both work in the same movie at the same time.
don't mean to pause this early after like so many pauses, but there is a point that I want to make, or rather reiterate, and that is the point that you cannot reasonably determine what makes a faithful Godzilla if you already misinterpret Godzilla at his most fundamental level, and you cannot interpret Godzilla in any way without using 1954 as your interpretive framework. If you fundamentally misinterpret what he is from his inception / foundation, your entire framework is going to inform the rest of your beliefs, erroneously too, very erroneously. And this is something he does almost consistently. And Zim, since you have more experience with him than I do, what would you say is his school of thought when it comes to media analysis?
I'm not sure about media analysis as a whole because, frankly, because my channel is primarily a kaiju channel, I don't interact with his videos that have nothing to do with Godzilla. So as a result, I'm not sure what his take on other franchises is, but at least analyzing his Godzilla takes, in his view, essentially, it is pretty much the normie view of Godzilla is Godzilla. Like, math is math, so therefore Godzilla is essentially self-referentially Godzilla, and if it has the name Godzilla attached to it, then therefore it qualifies as valid, and this doesn't go anywhere deeper than that. And as a result, that's what makes any of these analyses that he makes annoying to sit through, because if you're working from that assumption, then really you have no framework to be like, where is it that a filmmaker has created something that strays too far away? There's no way a line can be drawn, because it is almost this like tacit acceptance of anything and everything being valid because it was able to be made in the first place.
Right.
Like, is there certain things that like it probably would have been better if it wasn't made the way it was, or if it was changed in one way, shape, or form. I'd say one of the best examples, because there's very few defenders of it inside its community and outside of its community, is Dragon Ball Evolution. And the reason why I use that as an example is due to the fact that because there is really no defenders of Dragon Ball Evolution, you're able to at least have someone concede on the fact that there are certain cases where a piece of art is so bad or so offensive that is better it had not been made. If you can establish like end point, or at least a cutoff point, then you have to like drag them and work your way through rhetorically explaining to them where these are as well, stopping points where maybe this should have been changed, that shouldn't have been made, this would have been probably a better decision, things like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately that is where the hard part comes when it concerns discussions about Godzilla, is that because everyone is pretty attached to a certain Godzilla movie and a certain interpretation of Godzilla's character based on probably their first experience with the character, that it makes talking about being faithful to Godzilla hard, because a lot of people ascribe their identity to their Godzilla, and by in their eyes invalidating what makes Godzilla Godzilla to them, you're invalidating their identity as a fan and probably them as just an individual as a whole, and you tie your emotions to that. That ultimately is what leads to such heated discussions and the toxicity of it. Like, I mean, for myself, my first Godzilla experience, I'm not shy about this, is Godzilla's Revenge. I have very fond memories with Godzilla's Revenge. I still like it to this day, and there are a lot of problems with that film. I am not shy about that at all, but I do not tie my identity to the first version of Godzilla that I saw.
Yeah, same here. One of the first Godzilla movies that I watched was '98. I just liked it because giant monster, but I'm not gonna say it's a good movie. And the OBS disconnected. Great, awesome, thanks. No, okay, no, now we're back. But yeah, like one of the first movies that I watched was '98. I'm never gonna call it a good movie because it's not. It's far from it. I don't have an emotional attachment to the movie. I don't have as fond a memory as something like the Smurfs, because like I watched the Smurfs and like after it had come out, and I liked it. It's not a good movie though, but I really am fond of the memories it elicits. But I think that's something that a lot of people just can't do for X or Y reason, be it like maturity of character, or I don't know, just maybe just maturity of character. Anyway.
Well, I think like a lot of cases nowadays, people ascribe like either like moral or ethical shortcomings in people based on like their favorite forms of media. To a certain degree, there is merit in that discussion, but just because you like a film that is not the best or has flaws to it does not dictate who you are as a person. And that's why I feel everyone is so quick to defend their film as being the best it can be, or like a masterpiece because of that. And
Yeah.
I think that that is a problem, because ultimately you tie so much of yourself and your identity to the perceived quality of something else. And if that is called into the question, then part of you is called into the question, and that's just not healthy.
Yeah. Unless you like cuties, in which case you should be locked up.
Again, like I said, it's very easy to point out like those drastic examples. The hard part comes into really getting into the nitty gritty and like getting to the steps of where do we go from this all the way down to something like cuties.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it would be funny to bring up, but yeah, because there are people that genuinely think it's a good movie, because like the message is so like profound. And I mean like it's not profound. Like I get I mean I know what the message is, and I know that like the I wanna say it in terms that won't get me flagged. The whatification of young underage people is a problem that needs to be addressed. Hell, I in Dominican Republic, that's like extremely common. In schools, like you'll have the teachers leave the classroom. Some kid brought a giant boombox, and suddenly the whole classroom turns into a rave, and everybody's dancing in ways that could only be found in clubs. And you're wondering who taught these kids how to do that. And then I come to find out, oh, there's actual classes teaching these kids how to do it. Oh, that's not good. But it is a problem. However, it is kind of impossible to tell that kind of story, because at that point, like, you need to exploit children to show that exploiting children is bad. At that point,
because I don't even think that either. I think that like
at least for the
especially in a
cuties.
case
That
Like, at
specific
least in the
movie.
story of Cuties, you do not need to necessarily show that on screen to elicit the message that you're trying to convey. You can get that message across without me having to bear witness to it. And I think that anyone who says that that is impossible, I think that is a limitation of your creative potential.
I mean, that depends on how much time you're focusing on it, I would say. Because at that point, I feel like you could just make that a documentary instead, no? I feel like a
Yeah,
documentary.
you could make it a documentary, but if you have to make it as a story, there's a lot of creative tricks that you can do in order to avoid actually like doing this to other children.
True, but at some point you have to show it, like because
You don't need to show it in its entirety. Like
okay, well,
people
not in its entirety. Okay, no, that I do agree with.
like cutaways or silhouettes without actually using the children to do it. Or like having other characters that are obviously older do this and the effect it has on that child itself. Like you do not need to necessarily put your child characters in these situations to where on screen it has to be portrayed in that way.
Like cutaways, no,
possible.
that you could do. I think. I think at that point you'd have to make the movie shorter, which in that case, go for it. I'd say like if this absolutely is something that needs to be told and tell people this isn't right, we shouldn't be doing this, then yeah, like make like an hour 130 max would be where I would top it off, because like there comes a point where the cutaways do become obvious, and like yeah, you understand why you're doing it, and you know you're trying to be moral, you're trying to be the most moral you can be, because I think art should be moral too, but yeah, no, if it gets to that where I think putting limitations definitely is healthy in that sense. Subjects like that don't glorify it, right? I think that is, you would have to. I'd say I don't think it's easy though. That would be my main point. I don't think it's easy. I mean the topic itself is not easy. I mean just look at again Berserk, right? The '97 anime didn't show the whole violation of Kafka in its entirety, but it did treat it with the horror and the gravitas that it did deserve. Whereas with the Golden Age animated movies, the way it depicts it, it's almost like hentai, and it just when I saw that, it rubbed me the wrong way. I did not like that. I genuinely did not like that. It was
like I'd say like if the point is to elicit the discomfort, then like sure it did its job, but you do not need to then do it in such a way. But I would say like the argument could also extend to things like how much like violence can be depicted on film with things like the Terrifier, but I think it's a different discussion. But I believe we're also kind of getting too much down this rabbit hole.
into the
We're
ethics.
going too down the rabbit.
Yeah, we should continue. I'm gonna get clipped for this, aren't I?
There goes your nuts.
Yeah, just yeah. At least I had to bring up the Berserk point just to save face, but yeah. No, don't. Overall lesson of the segment: don't do bad stuff. And don't do bad stuff. Anyway,
Those two sides of Godzilla are not separate, and have actually Godzilla really shouldn't be limited to being silly or serious, a hero or a villain. That's something that we, both the fans and Legendary and Toho, who are making these fantastic movies, do need to keep in mind. He is both, he is all of them, and that is what we are going to be looking at today.
I have another
Well,
point here.
his point already contradicted himself when he made the point of like what Toho needs to realize, or I'm paraphrasing what he just said, because like they've already done it through 30 films and everything. Like he has been serious, he has been silly, and he's also been both, and he's also been more than just a monster, or he's just been like an animal in some cases. Like the original is technically an animal in some regards, so he's already contradicted himself when it's already been done. So it's not like it's not a lesson for anyone to realize really when it's already been done.
I'd say like people always talk about like, oh, Godzilla can be serious or Godzilla can be silly. Like discounting the Legendary films, Godzilla Final Wars is the only time past Terror of Mechagodzilla itself, not a very silly film, that has Godzilla doing anything like really silly, like Megaguirus as well. Like those two films, I would
Mhm.
say you have Godzilla doing more sillier actions. But besides those two films, Godzilla for the Heisei and the Millennium series, and now into the Reiwa era, is treated pretty consistent. Like his design, some maybe small aspects of his character have changed, but Godzilla has remained relatively consistent. And I think that that is primarily why he has remained such an iconic character, is that in the large strokes, post the Showa era, Godzilla is a pretty consistent character, but where he aligns depends on the story itself. Like Godzilla is technically more of a hero in King Ghidorah than he is in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. But that does not mean his character himself has changed all that drastically. Had you put like the circumstances of Mechagodzilla 2 in the framework of King Ghidorah's film, Godzilla would remain pretty much the same. There's nothing to state otherwise. And I think that's what people get wrong about character development, especially nowadays, where characters need to go through like these really drastic actions and they have to have these broad sweeping changes to who they are as people in order for people to think that they have some kind of character development, where in reality there can be small incremental changes that can change a person's views on one thing or another that is then carried over in future installments. I think that is a more proper understanding of like character growth.
And kind of like going off of that, like I would argue like an example of that in terms of a especially a character arc for Godzilla would be ironically in Final Wars, and it's a very small thing. It's like him forgiving humanity for what they did to him, waking him up and all the torture or whatever else. Like that's the first thing that came to mind. Where like it's brought up very briefly in a side scene with the kid Manila and the grandpa of like, and Godzilla can never forgive humanity, and then at the end it's brought back up again where he walks away off to the sunset and forgives them. Like I feel like that's a prime, very simple prime example of like Godzilla having a full-on character arc, whereas on the generalistic level, it's been predominantly, as you uh, best put it, consistent in terms of like as like a very neutral-esque animal type of monster.
Mm-hmm. I would say like,
Question.
another thing too is with animals. Well, before real quick, just before I lose my point,
Yeah.
with monsters too, a lot of their character is informed by their actions as well because they don't have dialogue. I think that's something else we need to keep in mind.
Mhm.
But what were you gonna say, Black? Sorry.
No, you actually answered my question before I could make it. So yeah.
I am Nostradamus.
No, you saw into the future. You are the Lisan al Gaib. You are the Kwisatz Haderach. Lisan al Gaib.
Lisan al Gaib.
Erudidina esidani na Lisan al Gaib. Roy timeraru ashitib. Atamrishi ashanta. That's not how it's said. That's not how.
Actually, I am actually the Lisan al Gaizim.
Yeah, true. The Lisan al Gaizim. You drive a Kwisatz Cadillac while I drive my Sardu car. Anyway, the point I was gonna bring up, although I do fundamentally agree with the sentiment that tone is not an indicator of quality, tone is often an excuse many will use to justify terrible writing, and as such, I have reacted in the past by saying that Godzilla should focus on being serious because his origin is serious. And if you want to be the purest, and if you want the purest version of Godzilla, you should stick to that. But the issue with that line of thinking is that assuming that the core identity of Godzilla will fundamentally change the second you have him act in opposition or deviation from his archetype, which, in theory, I don't think it's completely true. But looking back, the reason I thought that was the case was because the sillier movies just so happened to, because you were mentioning a while ago, we were having that conversation of Godzilla and the chthonic archetype that he is. I don't remember, because from what from the Showa era, I do not think that he completely embodies that chthonic archetype at all. I think he deviates from that quite a bit. And I thought that was like the cause, like just I thought that was the causation, but what it really was just correlation. My current stance so far is that filmmakers should avoid the silly Godzilla until they learn how to make a good story with these tones, because they have shown time and time again that it's much harder for them to write a good silly Godzilla story than it is a serious one, and even then, that's mostly due to the fact that Godzilla is in his element when discussing a serious topic like nuclear war. And furthermore, I would also another thing I would consider is that writing a good serious Godzilla movie is also pretty hard. But since there are a few good Godzilla stories that are serious, but not all of them are, and a lot of them are quite poorly written, I would say.
I would say too, the only really the only silly Godzilla film beside the only way people say something like Hedorah or Gigan or Son of Godzilla is silly is because of some of the actions the characters perform and how some of them look. Like if you make Manila and Godzilla more animalistic, like if Godzilla looks closer to his 54 design and Manila acted less like an actual human child and just acted more like a small animal, like a child animal, the film itself is not silly. It's pretty just neutral in tone. Like the only really silly Godzilla film with a silly Godzilla, which I don't even think silly would be the right word, just like a less antagonistic Godzilla, I think would be a better term, is Godzilla versus Megalon. And people point to that as oh, we can have the silly Godzilla, do Megalon dropkick. Every time they do this, and people tend to forget, Godzilla does next to nothing in that film. The film has essentially nothing to do with him. He is just there because it is a Godzilla film. He shows up, fights another monster, shakes hands with the funny robot, and leaves. Like, if we're saying we can have a silly Godzilla film, then, and point to Megalon as your example, congratulations. When you do Godzilla silly, Godzilla does very little in a film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think also another thing too, the point of contention being had, at least with Allo, is that when he says hero versus villain, which also falls in line with the previous quotes where Max has said Godzilla isn't a hero or a villain, which is something we will tackle. Um, chthonic forces, I think, because this is from the very limited stuff that I've read, because the definition you were using, Zim, I haven't heard that in a while. Well, actually, no, I haven't heard it at all. Um, uh, I think I'm pretty sure they're necessarily antagonistic to life and humanity, because it would be one thing to tell a story from Godzilla's perspective, a la Paradise Lost, for example. But one thing to remember is that although telling the stories from their perspective does not therefore make them any less antagonistic to life and humanity, I think the role of villain and antagonist are often conflated. That this is something that Max Allo does. Because, for example, the antagonist of a story does not necessarily make him a villain, because a villain is a moral slash ethical title that refers to somebody who lacks those morals or ethics, oftentimes. An antagonist is just the opposing force in your story. This is something that he conflates quite a bit. It just means we have a great understanding of their thoughts when we're focusing on their perspective and motivations in ways that no longer require inference. Like, you don't have to infer things anymore. You don't have to use subtleties anymore. You don't have to, what's the word? You don't have to rely on implications, because that's something a lot of fans do when they're trying to defend a movie. They like to say X or Y is implied, but anything can be implied if you force a narrative enough, if you stretch it enough. But yeah, I wanted you to tackle that chthonic force thing, Zim, because you seem to know more about it than I do.
So, generally, when we say chthonic forces, we're being a little more tongue in cheek, I guess, with the term, in the sense that not every creature, when you're talking about a chthonic creature, comes specifically from hell or the underworld. Off, but if you want to be as true to the possible, then the creatures coming up from the ground is can be considered chthonic creatures. So that's why oftentimes chaos serpents come up from the ground, not necessarily hell. Um, Lotan and Bale in the ball cycle. Lotan comes up from the deep waters beneath the earth to do battle with Bale or Ball versus like Ball fighting Moat is a chthonic battle in the sense that Moat is the god of the underworld that is doing battle with Ball, whereas Ball fighting Lotan is not a creature from the underworld itself. So usually it is creatures just coming up from the depths to antagonize humanity. Oftentimes there can be cases where these chthonic creatures are roused because of the actions of humans, or they have some kind of direct antagonistic relationship with humans. A lot of dragon stories that come out of Europe are showing examples of these dragons either feasting on livestock, feasting on humans, and as a result, that is why you have heroes who then face off against these creatures, or you have cases where people steal things from these creatures, and that's what incurs that chthonic wrath. So with Beowulf, the only reason why the dragon comes out to face against our heroes is because someone stole something from the dragon's hoard. And after these like chaos serpents are dealt with either through gods, demigods, or through heroic humans, is order reestablished. And oftentimes this order comes with a boon of some kind where the slaying of these beasts either presents a like food boon in some cases or knowledge of some kind, calming of the waters. There's usually a piece that comes afterwards. Specifically, and this is like just an idea that I've been like toying with in my mind when I say Godzilla is a secular chthonic serpent, in the sense that Godzilla is not the result of any divine providence. He's a natural creature that is created through natural forces. In obviously in the Godzilla universe, nuclear weapons are able to produce natural monsters with preternatural abilities, which is different from supernatural. That would be a whole other discussion of itself. And because of the actions of humans, Godzilla is roused, destroys some aspect of humanity, which causes Serizawa, the hero, to end up slaying the monster and ultimately bring peace of some kind. However, in the secular sense, because there is no divine providence, there's no moral arc to the universe, you're left with a more melancholic ending in that there is probably no hope to nuclear weapons being disarmed or no longer being a part of this world. So we're left with this idea that more than likely another Godzilla or an even worse monster will appear, and the only solution that we've been able to come up with is creating worse weapons than what created these monsters in order to fight them, which could ultimately create worse monsters, which is why a lot of people like the thematics behind Destroy as a character, but may not like the movie per se. So that's at least like, that is a very TLDR of this thought that's been kind of roaming around in my head for some time now.
Yeah, I think. Hold on. Stream again. We'll just leave it to the recording. I think it was in Carl Jung that he said that the chaos is often embodied by the sea. That the ocean. I don't remember if it was Carl Jung or
I think it's Young, but Young took it from somewhere else, and that's another thing.
or Freud. I don't remember. Young
no,
or
I think
Freud.
it's Young.
Okay, it was
Young
Carl.
or Freud, one of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, like Godzilla rises from the sea. What is the sea? It's chaos, right? Forces of chaos, forces of entropy. So what does that fit in with what you're saying?
That's just another part of like Godzilla just sort of unintentionally being a part of the motif. Like in a lot of cases, you don't necessarily always associate dinosaurs with the ocean. But the idea of a dinosaur creature, which for all intents is essentially rising in the ocean with a fiery breath, quote unquote, to menace humanity, either in like unintentionally or not, it just touches on those parts of the motif.
Yeah, I was mainly because I feel like that's very significant. I feel like it does kind of shake up well, maybe not the secular part, but again, if he is a force of destruction and he does come from the sea, chaos, entropy, and he spreads that chaos and entropy and that destruction, wouldn't that like metaphysically make him like from below? If you catch my drift when I say from below,
Yeah,
not
no,
just
I think you're saying that, but like at least I'm just saying in the sense of ignoring anything else in the franchise and looking at just the first film, there was no indication that there is any kind of supernatural elements to the world. And anything that is considered supernatural, like the idea of Godzilla being a god on Odo Island, has more to do with the islander superstition of a very real intangible creature rather than supernatural providence of some kind.
Well, maybe not providence, because the things from below don't do things necessarily through providence. They do it because they want to do their own will. Do as thou wilt. Chaos, pandemonium regnat, all that jazz. So if he's like an entropic force and he produces chaos and entropy, like even if it's not, even if you could say that any deific, because I wouldn't even call it deific, because like when you're referring to a god type creature, like a god is necessarily, and this is something I bring up later, is necessarily a moral agent. Godzilla isn't that, so like, but he does like come out from the sea, spread entropy.
From a Christian perspective, yes, the gods are moral entities. Which that would be like that engenders a whole religious discussion.
Yeah.
That I think that like would take way more time than I would say that we'd be able to for the stream. But I think like at least from what you're saying, like pretty much everything that you're saying, I do agree with, and I think it just further supports the point that I am trying to make.
All right then. No, I just wanted to see if we were in synergy with that, because I ultimately do believe, because he has been referred to as a kami, but like again, if we're talking, if a kami is a god, then like if he blesses and punishes, right, that assumes a moral, an ethic. So like he would then necessarily be a moral
again, that's
agent.
like we'd have to we could get into like the Shinto aspects of kami and like Godzilla, where Godzilla places within that. But again, that's a whole other discussion. That would take us a long time, I think.
Fair enough. Let us continue. I have so many notes in the beginning and so few notes at the end, so we might spend the majority of our time in the beginning than in the end.
So please don't forget to subscribe for more, everyone. This is the first channel. We are still work in progress for the name of it. Us, we can go with a bunch of other ideas. I'm always looking for ideas from you in the comments, so leave your thoughts below. And let's get on to More Than a Monster, Godzilla.
Godzilla's a character that I've been familiar with longer than I can even remember.
We've seen his playful side. We've seen his wrathful, destructive side. We've even seen the parental, fatherly side, and the side of one grieving the loss of a loved one. In a lot of ways, Godzilla is almost a reflection of the best and the worst in humanity.
So, already, crap again. Already, Godzilla is a reflection of humanity, like the best and the worst in humanity. Thoughts?
I'd say that's a fair enough point. I mean,
The fair enough point. It's like where it leads to, I think, is the issue, but I think that anytime someone brings up the Megalon dropkick or the Shie dance, there is something I feel like is sort of tacked on or slid in, is like there was a tacit endorsement of it in and of itself, where specifically the Shie dance was not something Honda, the director of the film, really wanted, but ultimately allowed to happen begrudgingly. Like Honda did not want to see Godzilla anthropomorphized in an Astro Monster or Ghidorah the three-headed monster.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I honestly like a reflection of the best and the worst in humanity. On top of the fact that it sounds very vague, because you could like say that about almost any other character. I also don't fully, because like you guys already know I'm a bit of a Godzilla purist. But like I honestly don't think, because this is the common anthropomorphizing of Godzilla that people like to employ. This side, the pure side, the traditional 54 side, is almost exclusively the worst side of humanity. You know, nuclear bombs, the weapon, the perfect weapon against life, because it doesn't just kill, it corrupts, it decays things. And that was always like Godzilla from the inception. Like, he is not the atomic bomb from Hiroshima and Nagasaki necessarily, just nuclear weapons. But like there is a case to be made though, because the bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were dropped to prevent a greater evil. They're still far from the best of humanity. Let's say I would say that just because an entity like Godzilla can feel things or has feelings, doesn't necessarily make Godzilla a creature with, I don't know, morals or something that can necessarily be sympathized with on that level. Because if you look at nature documentaries, for example, if you shoot the documentary from the perspective of a lion trying to teach the cubs how to hunt, you're gonna be rooting for the lions because, oh look, this mother's taking care of her children and he's teaching them how to hunt. That's so like parental of you. There's that connection being made, like, oh, this guy's a parent. It's teaching like a parent. Parents do that. You make that connection in your mind. Whereas if you were looking at it from the perspective of the prey, you would be, oh my god, this lion is so monstrous. These lion cubs are so monstrous. They're so violent. Oh my god. And you get that feeling of like sadness and despair. And it ultimately just depends on which perspective you're focusing on. But ultimately, like I said previously, like even if you were focusing on Godzilla's perspective, you would still have to measure who he is by what he does. And what he mostly does is destroy things, kill people, then why should it matter at all that he feels parental through someone of his own, like that's a member of his own species? Like, yeah, humans do that too most of the time. So like, how is that like a plus to? I feel like I feel like that comes with the territory. I don't see that.
I think this is something that comes with the unexplored nature of the films, and I feel that there are elements that could make this point better or worse had they actually been touched upon. Like in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, it's explained that Godzillasaurs are less aggressive than Godzilla himself is. Like, hypothetically, if they posited the idea that if Godzilla takes the baby Godzilla, that ultimately it would engender Godzilla's parental instincts, and therefore you could stop Godzilla attacks from happening if Godzilla just has another member of his own kind. We monitor Godzilla, we don't do anything to mess with Godzilla, we can live in peace with Godzilla. That would be an interesting thing to discuss in the film, and I think it would lead to these conversations being more productive because it's actually touched upon. But I feel that because we as the audience like Godzilla the character, we like extrapolate what we're feeling for the character because we like him rather than what's actually shown in the films.
Yeah, ultimately but that's ultimately why I would disagree with the point that he's like a reflection from a purely purist perspective, which again I don't think he has a purist perspective. So
yeah, I would say like Godzilla is a reflection of parts of humanity. I don't think he's a pure reflection of every aspect of humanity. I think that is way too broad, it is way too vague, and it just sounds nice, and that's why so many people use it as a point.
it feels like it's trying to comfort the audience, like, oh, like, yeah, this guy is just like you, like he thinks like you, he feels just like you. You know what I mean? They're trying to ascribe some
fictional character would agree with me.
Yeah,
it does kind of scream of that kind of energy.
Yeah, that's why, because he did say he's both, he's all of them. You can't just say he's both and. That's almost like saying he's all of the above. What is Godzilla? Yes. What is Godzilla? Oh, he's Godzilla. But what is he? Godzilla. Oh.
Exactly, yeah.
It's so vague, so nondescript. It's like an amorphous blob. I don't like that. Anyway, let's continue.
He has even been so petty. World is coming to say, I can't be bothered with this when it comes to fighting an alien.
Again, I think it is taking the film for what it is, which is fine. But then if you're gonna have an like analytical discussion, not even talking about like the behind the scenes aspects of it, I feel it is again a disservice. Another aspect of Godzilla's character that Honda specifically did not want to include, but did have to include at the behest of Toho, the company. Like I think this is definitely, as a character, I could understand Godzilla having it, but how it's portrayed is done in a way so that a younger audience can understand it and sympathize with it, which I do feel hurts Godzilla's character in the long run, especially in like the show era, but just discussions like in the future overall.
Yeah. I was gonna say, actually no, I don't have a point for this. I have something much later. You just continue.
Some kaiju have unambiguously been good, have been heroes. Chief among them is Mothra, To a degree, Batra also fits in here, but Batra is much more of an aggressive, almost anti-hero-like character, where he is objectively on the side of good, as in the planet, but he does not mind wiping out humanity.
Pause here.
Yeah, I have a point there too. You go first.
Both, like, Batra is just sort of like the original Mothra, just taken up to 11. Like, Mothra has no problem, like, killing people if it means rescuing her fairies, innocent or otherwise. There's never been a line of dialogue or a statement that is stated that Mothra has gone out of her way or out of his way to not harm people when in search of the fairies. Like, the amount of destruction the original Mothra does in the first film is definitely gonna cause at least the injury of uninvolved parties.
Mhm.
I think, like, in the broad sense, could you say that yes, Mothra is a less destructive and less antagonistic force compared to Godzilla? Sure, but then what does that even mean, though? Like, what value does that statement hold? I know you're probably gonna say something about Batra and like what he just said regarding it, so I'll hold my tongue.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is that he does say that like he Batra is objectively on the side of good, and then he just emphasizes, oh, but nature good. Oh, okay, that's pretty bleak coming from you, but okay, because I said because what I was thinking was, wait, do you think like nature in itself, like protecting nature, excluding humanity, is an inherent good? Because let's look at animals for example. Like they don't have morals because they don't have the sapience or like the kind of brains, the kind of not a brain but a mind that would allow them to like have a self, to have an identity, to have perception of the self in the philosophical sense, in the metaphysical sense. They don't have they don't have that, right? Wiping out humanity would be an objective evil. Attacking humanity would be an objective evil. So like Batra would be a straight villain at that point if he is like, you know, if he ever decides, oh, humanity is getting in the way. What does getting in the way means? He doesn't explain. But another thing is that like he assumes that objective goodness is found is nature and the planet itself, because that's a very interesting choice of words he have. He's separating nature as good and humanity as an X factor, which are interesting things to say, I think. Like it says quite a lot. Not very good stuff. Like
The implications are very weird.
unethical, I would say. I was like, don't you? I thought you're human, dude. Don't you like us humans too? Why you seem to have it out for humanity? Like, maybe maybe he's not, but the way he phrased it, it does not fill me with hope, to be honest. Anyway, let us continue.
If humanity gets in the way. At the same time, we've had unambiguous things like Ghidorah, Space Godzilla, Gigan, and Desotroya. But not Godzilla. There's actually been in fact, actually, the vast majority of them, where he is both without being necessarily a hero or a villain. Most of this goes into the idea that Godzilla is above the kind of petty concept of human morality, of good and evil.
How can Godzilla be sympathetic if he's above petty morality? That makes no sense.
And that statement also falls apart when you have GMK in existence. Like GMK.
Oh, he brings up GMK. He does bring up GMK.
He'd be like, "Well, it's an exception. It
boy.
doesn't count."
That's bullshit. Like, because you can't make statements like this when there is a clear example, and really GMK comes to mind of like pure evil. Like that is a pure evil Godzilla, and
just wait until wait till he says the point about GMK, because it's actually gonna. I think you're gonna get a kick out of that. But
how far into the video is it?
Very far.
Okay, well, I'm probably not gonna be here then because I will drop out like around 3:30 ish.
we might be able to get to it, but anyway. So
Alright.
yeah, piggybacking off of Zim's point, this is the view that I wanted. This is the point that I really wanted to get to because it's almost nihilistic and anti-human in a way. Like the fact that morality is inherently because the way he phrases it makes it sound as though like morality is an inherently human conception and not a real objective thing that exists in the world. But he'll say that protecting nature and like the planet itself is an objective good. So I don't know how he can say that. Because like I mean, calling Godzilla a force of nature, yet saying he is above morality altogether is in the same breath implies that nature is metaphysically above morality as if it were on a food chain, with morality and ethics being directly under nature itself. I mean, there is a case to be made regardless of whether nature is inherently good or not, but I do not believe, personally, because this is something I investigated, I don't really believe in surd evil. Just look at animals. They aren't, like I said previously, they are incapable of committing a truly evil act because evil is informed by the will, which assumes a person, which assumes identity, which assumes a mind and a soul. Something animals just simply do not demonstrate. They just don't have, and we like to anthropomorphize them a lot whenever they display behaviors that are almost like human, but they're acting on instinct. So they're not necessarily morally accountable because they don't act in base of morality because they don't have the mind for it. And if we want to categorize Godzilla as an animal, then fine. But like to say that he is above morality, you're basically deifying him in a way that he was never meant to. Like a god would necessarily be a moral agent and cannot act in an arbitrary way. He cannot act in arbitration. A god would inform how humans ought to act, regardless of whether there's like a tyrannical god or like just a normal god, little g god. So like, you see what I mean? He's basically deifying Godzilla.
Yeah, like I would say, like the thing with Godzilla, at least, like external material that is like versions of things we see on screen. There is a level of thinking that Godzilla has that shows that it is acting in accordance with its own perceived morals and ideas. Like Godzilla is going out of his way to kill humans because it wants to. It has an anger against humans for X and Y reason, which is why Godzilla ethically commits heinous actions, and why we can also say that Godzilla does create and do things that are good. There are positives and there are negatives.
Right. But again, this is from a purely like purist perspective. The way
but even going by a purely purist take, then Godzilla does commit like evil actions.
Yeah. You can like a person's morality is ultimately determined because if you want to say Godzilla is sentient, which I don't know that he is. He does demonstrate intelligence, but like sentience, sapiens, that ultimately assume
Well, ultimately, what would be the threshold for you of sapience?
basically the ability to recognize between objective good and objective evil.
Yeah, but even then, there's a lot of people who can't even do that.
Yeah, but like that doesn't necessarily disprove that, like, you know, like if you're trying to say that it would be hard to categorize Godzilla in that way, like fine, but we'd have to see what the movies are saying. But like, I don't, because at least from my worldview, I don't believe that is subjective. Like, I don't think like just people disagreeing, because we can like disagree on what counts as moral or ethical.
I would say that, yeah, like overall, like Godzilla wasn't doing the actions it was doing prior to its mutation, so it understood not to do those things. It is only after the wrongs committed against it does it then lash out. It's understandable it lashes out. However, the like preponderance and level of actions it commits are like they heavily outweigh any sympathy that it could garner as a creature. And that is why I believe it is true that Godzilla is sympathetic, but still commits evil actions.
Yeah, like I don't particularly believe sympathy garners defense or justification.
Sympathy can garner defense, but it does not guarantee it.
At least for Godzilla, because I know with some characters like they can, you know, garner a defense, but like with Godzilla in particular, I don't think it does.
Mm.
Yeah. Let us continue.
He is a true force of nature. He does not discriminate between good and evil, heroes and villains. He simply does.
Wait, pause.
Yep.
Then Godzilla versus Megalon, that's contradicted by like Godzilla versus Megalon, Invasion of Astro Monster, Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla Final Wars, Godzilla versus Gigan, Son of Godzilla, All Monsters Attack for what it's worth. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is so vague and it doesn't apply to like a lot of films that you would have to take on a case by case basis. It's meaningless.
Yeah. You can't. Max Allo does this a lot. He speaks very vaguely, very flowery, vague language. That's why
it's
I
it's the
call him
vague
the high
flowers.
top. Yeah, like that's why I call him the high top of Godzilla movies. Basically what he does. Yeah, let's continue.
But they have had emotion with. He is unambiguously a destructively
Hold on, because it.
good and evil.
Yeah.
He is a true force of nature. He does not discriminate between good and evil. Simply does. But they have had emotion with him. Even as far back as the original movie, where he is unambiguously a destructive force that is devastating Japan, he is portrayed in actually a very sympathetic light. In the sort of prologue for the movie, the pre-mutation Godzilla and many of his kind and family were actually living fairly safe, fairly normally under where the Castle Bravo tests were. When the H-bombs went off, they destroyed his home, his family. Everything he knew was gone, and he was mutated, changed into this giant destructive force.
Quick thing.
Okay, and
I've always asked myself that if Japan was not directly responsible for his mutation and creation, why was he even attacking Japan to begin with? Because humanity as a whole was not responsible for what happened to him, unless we're to believe that Godzilla is racist against humans. But, like...
essentially, yeah. I mean, like, the thing with this is that it plays too much on Godzilla being sympathetic and then pulls a source that isn't even in the film. Yes, it is speculated that Godzilla came from an undersea cavern. There might have been others in his kind, and that the H-bomb test are what awoke it and irradiated him. However, that does therefore not justify or be on the same level as going to Tokyo itself and eliminating countless more people than even like the amount of like Godzillas that could have possibly been killed in that action. Like, the levels are not the same. And again, if we want to say, oh, well, the theater program says this, the novelization says otherwise when it comes to how Godzilla is portrayed, and
yeah,
goes out of its way to state how Godzilla wrathfully or angrily is trying to kill people.
Yeah, and it's outside material that's not essential to the movies. It's just bonus stuff that's not explained whatsoever. So it's kind of like null and void.
Yeah.
Like I'm full. Yeah, I can continue.
There was a guy in the chat that's being a bit, I got my first hater in like a few months.
I think it might be 05.
It
Might
is?
be an alt. It might be. It could be, possibly. The statement got retracted, so who knows?
Yeah, it might be.
That's it.
That little weasel. Anyway, let's continue.
The story is one of him enacting his vengeance onto humanity for what happened. Other movies have very much painted him much more as the protagonist, saving humanity, albeit indirectly or deliberately, generally from an outside greater evil. That's why the idea of saying Godzilla is simply an allegory for nuclear force multiplication exponentiators, I have to say those words, is a bit of a massive oversimplification. That's why to say that nuclear destructive capabilities is not only a massive oversimplification, it's an injustice to the character and the legacy of the character.
No, it's
Because
not. No, it's not.
It's literally the foundation of where he started from.
It's
So
the foundation and a supplement. It is not a it is not a disservice. These things are not mutually exclusive.
I was gonna say I was gonna write something on this, but then I realized I feel like anybody with a brain could realize that's not true. But like, really, like, are you gonna tell me that the very foundation of Godzilla is actually a disservice to what he is? I think it's almost like he's retroactively. Ah, great OBS. I think he's
Well, no,
almost like
it's not retroactive. It's just his misread of 54 because he's adding outside aspects that make him feel better about the character and add to this oddly specific point that he's making.
no, I think it's
Because
because
in his view,
like
Godzilla is the victim, and because a theater program supports this view that he already has, therefore 54 without a doubt unambiguously portrays him as sympathetic or like a lost animal, which I'm not sure if he says it in this video or a different one, but yeah, no, like
I say
it's just
that though. I just say that though because apparently his first movie. Actually, no, he does say what his first movie is, but it's one of the sillier Showa era ones. So like, I have to wonder. Wait a minute, did the later movies inform how he reads 54 because he likes the movie so much? Maybe because that's what I mean by retroactive. Like, he's retroactively like trying to change Godzilla's identity or like alter it so that it can fit what he thinks Godzilla is because of how he felt when watching the first Godzilla movie he saw. So I think that's what I mean when I say retro. That's what I mean when I say retroactive. Is the internet working?
no, you're still here. I can hear you.
yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were just about to restart again.
Oh, okay. All right, let's continue.
For all, because for all he does embody the power, the destructiveness that they can bring, he is himself, in the end, just as much a victim of his scaly hide that is meant to resemble, well, skin during radiation sickness. On to a much more lighter topic, the combination of the silly and the serious Godzilla is something that actually has been shown to have been mastered by Toho, at least during the early years. And by early years, I don't mean the early days of the Showa era, I mean more towards the middle period of the Heisei era.
What are you
and
talking about?
Millennium era.
Is it
The
pause yet?
stories of those movies
No.
back
I
in
just
time to wipe out Godzilla.
Yeah,
you're
go on.
good. Just keep playing. I
It's all
wanted
over
to
the
finish
place.
this point. It's just ugh.
Before he ever existed, to a scientist.
I think we might have
a
skipped
f-
ahead too bit. Let me just
The combination
rewind.
of the silly and the serious Godzilla is something that actually has been shown to have been mastered by Toho, at least during the early years. And by early years, I don't mean the early days of the Showa era, I mean more towards the middle period of the Heisei era, and especially into the Millennium era. The stories of those movies were absolutely absurd. Everything from people traveling back in time to wipe out Godzilla before he ever existed, to a scientist creating a freak of nature monster because it was in a twisted way to save his own daughter. The movies completely played it straight-faced. They didn't flinch from the concept, as absurd as it was.
I think he might have been. I think he might be here conflating premise with tone.
Exactly, he is.
Yeah, he is.
They took it seriously, and showed that silly and serious aren't mutually exclusive. But as for Godzilla's much more protagonistic and heroic run,
I have a point to make in regards to that what he said just now. Because his basic understanding, like I said, the premise and the tone is the same. Then that anything that is overly convoluted and unrealistic must be silly, and characters playing it straight is an acceptance of that silliness rather than the acceptance of the premise. That's a major category error, I think, and it is going to damage everything he says moving forward. Very damning, very damning thing to say.
this began in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Prior to this, he was always portrayed as somewhat of a destructive force that either by unintentional destruction or a continued holdover from his vendetta against humanity would cause destruction to human structures. He would go in, destroy cities, but it was never the same forceful want to destroy as was had in the original movie. It was always simply a byproduct. With Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, this was still kept and did persist for a while longer. It was showing a much more outright heroic path Godzilla was taking, at least slowly at first, teaming up with Rodan or Radon and Mothra to face the evil space dragon Ghidorah that would have, well, destroyed Earth. But even this wasn't nearly as quick as you'd think. With this movie, as absurd as the scene is, we do get a lot more insight into Godzilla as a character, with Mothra's fairies, the Shobijin, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, actually translating the conversation between Radon, Godzilla, and Mothra. In the scene, Mothra's actually trying to convince Godzilla and Rodan to join up with her to face Ghidorah. Again, she'll
Gonna pause real quick in case, because he's playing copyrighted music. I don't want to be blasted by YouTube. Oh, jeez.
really evil versus oblivion,
Stop
or
real
at least
quick.
indifference to humanity versus.
Again, I'll say it once and I'll say it again. Godzilla kills people in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I am not sure why he fails to include this scene, since it is literally the first scene we get of Godzilla. And it's him just killing random people.
He also mentions, like, there is the point in regards to indifference towards humanity versus oblivion. Either, if you're living in a world full of monsters that just do whatever they want, either option can lead to humanity's oblivion given the world they live in, because new monsters will always going to be, they're always going to show up because the writers absolutely must have to make new monsters up for them to fight so that they can continue to make good movies. I don't think either option is a good option. It's just that one kills humanity slower than the other, I would say. But that's mainly just
Explain. Wait, sorry. I might have just misunderstood what you were saying. Kind of repeat that?
it might just be my negative bias against the monsterverse, because this mostly applies to that. But like, I feel like if there are monsters that can just do whatever they want roaming around on the planet, either option could potentially lead to humanity's extinction. It's just that one takes much longer than the other, just allowing another monster to just invade and take over. This is in reference to Rodan and Godzilla like not wanting to team up.
I think the problem is that in the case of the Monsterverse, it has this idea that like all the monsters are not like, they're not mutations, they're naturally occurring creatures on the planet like humans are. However, the theme of the Monsterverse is that we should step aside and allow nature to just kind of do its thing. Absent of the fact that nature, if given the opportunity, will change, and if we do not change with nature and allow ourselves to continue as we are, extinction for humanity is guaranteed. And in the Monsterverse, the idea that we're just simply just supposed to allow the Titans or Godzilla to continue to act in the ways that they are, which inevitably will cause more deaths, more destruction of humanity, is silly on its face. Like, and this is more blatant in the Wingard films than the King of the Monsters, because I think at least in the case of King of the Monsters, they are more overt with specifically stating and showing that there's a way for just regular human civilization to keep doing its thing simply with the existence of Titans. Whereas in the Wingard films, it's nature good, what are humans doing is bad, we should just kind of listen to whatever Godzilla is, you should be thankful he killed that monster.
Yeah.
Because ultimately Wingard doesn't really care in his films about the world building.
No, I think that's more than evidence. Let's continue.
To humanity versus oblivion. And again, for as absurd as the scene is, Godzilla tells Mothra the reason he won't save humanity. It's not because he hates humanity. It's because humanity, at least from his perspective, hates him.
Yeah, like if the show era is to be consistent with 54, if we're treating it as like a one singular continuity, they have
Yeah.
they have a pretty good reason to. So, yeah.
They come after him with their military and their bombs and their missiles, and they attack him simply for, in his perspective, existing.
Yeah, but he's killing people. His existence is like noxious to humanity. I feel like humanity defending itself is pretty justified. I don't know about you.
Like that goes without saying.
Yeah, unless you don't like humans, in which case I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell
At
you.
least in the case of like past Son of Godzilla, you like from Hera up until Terra Mecha Godzilla, Godzilla's just doing his own thing. Like I'd say like and again, this is just the nature of the beast. Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla's character is different because it's closer to how he is earlier on in the Showa series, whereas in the later Showa series, he's just more preferential to humans. But at that point in Godzilla versus Hedorah, in that point in the timeline, and Godzilla's just kind of not doing anything. He's not attacking humans. He was even attacking humans during like Godzilla versus like the sea monster. Godzilla's just off on the islands doing whatever. I'm like, if I lived in that world and like we knew for a fact that Godzilla has stopped attacking cities for like years at this point because of his own desire to not do that, like I would probably say it makes sense to build measures in case Godzilla were to decide to be antagonistic again. But if Godzilla's just kind of doing his own thing and fighting off monsters that are overtly antagonistic, I feel there's nothing wrong with that. But the Monsterverse does it in like the worst way possible.
No, but you see, Sim, if there's even a 1% chance he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
No. No. Breathe it in. That's fear.
You think you're brave? Men are brave.
Men are brave.
Why does Batman love men? Is he stupid? No, why does man love men?
I'm dead. Let's keep going.
All right.
And while this would eventually lead down the road to the end working with humanity to save the world, this was the one scene that led to Godzilla's much more heroic birth. Again, as silly as this scene is, it does hold a lot of weight, at least for the character of Godzilla. It does explain a lot of his reasoning. It does explain, in few words, a lot of actual character development.
Does it? Does it really? Are we gonna entertain that or no? I don't think that should be entertained.
No.
Like I usually and ideally, whenever confronted with a vice or or a moral weakness, there is a hold on, because I might have skipped. No, yeah, there is a level of dissonance and sacrifice that is being done to do the right thing. How does how does fighting Rodan benefit him in a way? Because that would be his cognitive dissonance moment of just not wanting to team up with Rodan. What does he earn? What does he gain from just fighting Rodan? Fighting Rodan. Like, any ideas? No.
Like the only thing, like the problem I think is that again, they wanted to make the monsters more anthropomorphic, so his desire to fight Rodan is more of a petty human scrap rather than like an animalistic resource acquisition.
Yeah.
Like had they been in conflict over like resources of some kind, which in most cases when people like rewrite the relationships with these monsters, they usually put nuclear energy more at the forefront. So if that's what they were fighting over, it would make more sense for that to be the case. And doing that keeps their characters more in line with one another and doesn't really change the dynamics of the film either.
Yeah, like that's actually that goes into my point, which is like, if he has to give up, if he cares so much about fighting Rodan that he doesn't want to give it up to fight Ghidorah and save the world, like how is this different? No, how significant is that to him as a person? We don't actually know. I don't think, because like, if I want to bring up a comparison, let's say like the Flash in Justice League, where he goes back in time after the mother boxes destroy the world. Like the only difference between those two is like the reasoning was petty for Godzilla, but both Barry and Godzilla were hesitant to use their powers to win the fight, and the consequences were different, but both hesitations were choices that characters made that stopped them from advancing the plot further in a favorable direction. But both are thrust into a circumstance where they are once again presented with the choice, and they made their choice at no cost to themselves or their surroundings. And next, I would posit that the character changes do not emerge necessarily in a vacuum. So changing someone's behavior between movies without justification is not. I wouldn't call that development. I would call that character inconsistency. You there?
Yeah, no, I'm there. There wasn't really anything to like disagree on that. I thought you were just gonna restart it.
No, I'll be right back. Give me like 30 seconds. You guys keep talking.
Gotcha.
Not much to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's just the frustrating thing is that it's such a misread of Godzilla as a character.
It's also
And
a
then that
mystery.
informs
I
everything.
I also view this just more as like a very more rambolistic video than it is a structured one with like actual purpose behind it. Like he's just like there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but like if he's gonna like start off with like an essay style video with a claim and then continue going on rambling, then it just loses its meaning and punch. And like to me, I have like no reason to like further discussion with this person, especially with so many contradictories we've gone through.
Yeah, like it's definitely very rambly, but it just feels like it's just going off the vibes of the films and just sort of the truisms of the community rather than like taking this time to sit down and actually examine these films and what they're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, let's continue because I'm back.
Yeah, babe.
Godzilla would have been before, he would have simply attacked on sight. And while him and Rodan and while him and Rodan actually outright say they would rather just keep fighting each other, it actually does show a fair degree of character depth in Godzilla, that he is incredibly intelligent. He
How is that deep?
It's not.
understands, he just simply doesn't care. But this would lead to the much more playful side of Godzilla that the Showa era was either famous or infamous depending on your perspective for. But this does hide the very significant character growth and development in story Godzilla and metacontextually Godzilla went through. In Invasion of Astro Monster, once again Godzilla and Rodan team up to face Ghidorah. And this time, they actually do so fairly willingly. Well, after the aliens bring them over to Planet X. Keep in mind, back in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, the two of them were basically being yelled at by Mothra to save the world, and their just body language was, I literally cannot be bothered with this, I just want to go back to hitting the giant pterodactyl, I just want to go back to hitting the giant dinosaur monster. They literally could not care less, and the body language completely sells all of that. But immediately fast forward to this, where they gladly work together, and after driving Ghidorah off back into space, Godzilla starts dancing.
Pause. Which is something Honda hated and did not want in the script. Just because it appeared on screen does not therefore justify it.
It was a
From
studio.
like,
You hear that, Vic? You hear that, Vic?
Yeah. It was a studio-made decision, and then it was something going on at the time of Japanese television, or I assume it was television. Like it was a dancing trend at that time. It's like the equivalent of having Deadpool say like a modern. Well, that's not a fair comparison, but okay. Godzilla doing the dance is like the equivalent of Godzilla doing the 6'7" today.
6'7", 6'7".
That's literally all it is. It has no character significance. It's only a cultural significance at the time.
Or Sonic
It was not-
flossing. Yeah, like you remember Sonic flossing?
Yeah, exactly that. That's literally what it is. And if Godzilla did not do the dance, that dance would probably be dead in media because Godzilla kind of made it popular again.
Yep. Anyway, let's continue.
Every dance Godzilla does is silly. It is preposterous. It is nonsensical. But it does show that Godzilla is no longer as hostile as he used to be. He hasn't forgotten what happened, but he is willing to essentially move on, sharing in their joint victory in celebration with Rodan.
Okay, can you pause real quick on his one claim of like Godzilla isn't hollow as it used to be? I think that is a very what's the word? Not juxtaposition. Very unfair description when comparing him as a character or any characteristics when you go back to from this film and before all the way back to 1954, because he is not inherently hollow. Like, sure, he just comes out as like straight on monster villain in King Kong versus Godzilla, but he is more than that than just like an animal in the second film, and then of course a disaster come to life in the original. I'm rambling right now. Never mind.
No, that's good. It's good. You should be talking more. Anyway,
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
Rest in piss.
You bozo. Sorry. Anyway, if you hear me coughing, chat, I'm dying.
Something that was actually very consistent with Godzilla vs. Gigan, where when Gigan and Ghidorah came down to Earth to destroy everything from the Space Hunter Nebula and all, Godzilla recruited Anguirus to assist him because he felt something was wrong. And he doesn't do this out of any love for humanity. He does this because Earth is his turf. And you might not be a monster I like, Anguirus, but at least you're from Earth. These guys aren't from Earth.
What about humans? Are humans from Earth? Or no? We descend from the heavens. We are creations of Yakub.
I'm dead.
Man,
We gotta get rid of him. This gradual marching on of character development eventually led to Godzilla vs. Megalon, where not only does he save the world from aliens and the Cetopians who are actually native to Earth, but he works alongside a human-made robot, Jet Jaguar. This shows Godzilla actually maybe not coming to terms with humanity's existence, but a lack of deliberate hostility towards them to accomplish a greater goal. And after this, he has no malice towards humanity. He was no longer intentionally destroying cities. He was a protector at this point. The best way of really phrasing it is, as Overly Sarcastic Podcast said, a grumpy Captain Planet. Going back...
Stop.
Yeah. I have points.
Overly Sarcastic Reduction is like one of the worst kaiju videos ever from like a variety slop channel. And two, just because the show films are in continuity does not necessarily mean that the transition from film to film is just like inherently consistent. Like, the biggest reason why Anguirus is in versus Gigan is due to the fact that they already had a suit that was just made a few years ago, and people had already seen Godzilla and Anguirus on screen working together, but that was in the future. So the reason why it's consistent to us now is that because with the show series in its entirety, if you watch it in chronological order, you get to see the quote-unquote beginnings of that relationship Godzilla has with Anguirus. And because Anguirus was popular, that's why he kept returning in later films like versus Mechagodzilla and versus Megalon to like a very small degree.
Hold
I
on.
forget the quote off the top of my head, but
Yeah, like
I know which one you're referencing.
Yeah, all I have to say in regards to that is just insert the Kayama quote. And if you have him protect humanity, I think he said sorry. I think he said something along the lines of if you have him like fight other monsters, you're essentially saying nuke your enemies. I think he said something along those lines. Which, if you wanted to say that later Showa era movies are well written, which is something I would contest, the thematic heart of Godzilla would still be gone if you have him like aim and fire at nuclear, like, because again, like he is nuclear weapons as a whole. So if you have him attack other monsters, nuke your enemies basically. And one could say that such a thing is simply an expansion of what Godzilla is, at least what's happening here. From 54 and beyond, or like from Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, and beyond. But like for example, like nuclear power in general can be used as a force for good. But one thing is nuclear power as a force for good, and another completely different thing is the nuclear bomb itself, and that's not what Honda wanted. So, or Kayama. I don't know how involved Kayama was in the production of
In the well, he is the original. Like his story is the basis for the film as a whole.
Oh, it was like one of the people that wrote the first drafts. Is that it?
Yeah, he writes the original draft for the story that is changed into the film, and then the books that he wrote that we can buy now are extrapolations off of his original ideas as well as the film's ideas.
Oh, that's pretty tragic. But yeah. Anyway, we're actually getting close to a point that I think is going to make everything make more sense as to why he says what he says. So we're getting close.
Back to the original core of Godzilla's identity, the embodiment of the power and the destructiveness and the victims of such nuclear weapons power that never was lost on Godzilla for very long. For as playful and kid-friendly as many of those movies did become, they would always come full circle into the origin of Godzilla. The original, I don't watch very often. For as great of a movie as I think it isn't really a movie I watch because it's not an enjoyable movie.
Stop.
It's one where you...
Yes, being horrified can be a form of enjoyment. The idea that horrifying or tragic or sad things are not enjoyable is a stupid dichotomy that needs to die. It has poisoned discussion as a whole.
I'll let you take the floor. I'll be right back.
Like, it pisses me off to no end when someone says, oh, well, that film isn't enjoyable. And then you ask them what they mean by that, and they mean, well, it's not fun. It's sad. It's depressing. Yeah, I enjoy that because I like to feel these deep emotions. That is fun. I like the idea that you need to be laughing, having a good time, smiling is like the common idea of enjoyable nowadays has made it so hard for people to take a lot of speculative fiction serious because indeed a lot of the aspects of speculative fiction are fantastical and sometimes they don't make a whole lot of sense. But because it doesn't make a lot of sense, people sometimes don't put as much effort into it as they should. And as a result, the quality of the product may suffer. And then people will usually like it ironically rather than unironically. And that's where you get so many people who come into franchises and will be like, oh, yeah, I like this because it's how silly and stupid it is. I don't like being around those people. They oftentimes contribute absolutely nothing to franchises and the fandoms they claim to be a part of.
And they also become like a prime example of like why gatekeeping should exist.
Exactly.
But then it's also it goes down to like, okay, if you it goes to like the meme of bro has only seen 11 movies. To that point, like, because if you cannot find enjoyment in a movie that has hard themes, hard emotions, or intensity to it, then you should not consider talking about any kind of literacy whatsoever, because you just have no concept of being able to process like basic human emotion. Essentially, like you can enjoy things that are dumb as well, but like enjoyment is ultimately more well beyond that. And if that's all you enjoy, then you have a very weak what's the word, not consumption of media.
Yeah,
and that should be expanded more. And it's not something that should be, especially with Godzilla, it's not something that should be brought to Godzilla, because then at that point your arguments become extremely shallow.
All right, I'm back. Can anyone explain to me why I'm feeling both hot and cold at the same? It's a fever. Never mind.
Yep, yeah, there you go.
Fever.
Oh God.
I also might have the flu because that's been going around.
Yep. Oh.
Feel your pain.
NNN in chat says horror is legitimately only funny film genre. Damn. I mean, if you're watching Final Destination. Anyway, let's keep going. See, this is how you know I'm a real G. I'm trudging through this splitting fever headache.
Each.
Or horror. One where you dread what is being seen. You do not rejoice when Godzilla smashes buildings in this movie like you do in many other films.
Yes, I do rejoice, but not for the same reasons.
I do.
I do because
it makes the
It is-
film interesting.
Yeah, it is
elevates things.
wonderfully created.
There's a thing in movies called stakes. It elevates the
Catharsis.
stakes.
Yeah, catharsis. That's basically what this is. I think he's conflating the feel-good vibes you get from a happy-go-lucky movie with catharsis. Catharsis
Yeah,
is something
I
else
had said
completely
that.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were gone, I was talking about that, where like the conception of fun or good to these people is that if it's happy and it makes you like joyful.
Yeah. Not the same thing. Sorry, not the same thing.
Few times I do that movie, I do get taken back to the first time I saw it, where I was watching this at midnight on a Saturday, wrapped up in my blankets I don't even remember how old I was when I saw it, but I
Slight interruption. I hate that he's using the GVK OST. It's such a terrible OST. I hate it with all of my heart. From the deepest parts of my heart and the blackest parts of my balls, I loathe this soundtrack almost as much as I loathe the movie. Anyway.
It's also, side note,
Yeah.
to your point, I find it fascinating how every single Godzilla movie, even the terrible ones, 98 and Godzilla's Revenge, all have fantastic soundtracks. And then you get to GVK and
GXK.
New Empire, and they're like pretty fucking mid soundtracks.
I would say this, like Mechagodzilla's theme is kind of the only thing from GXGVK I remember. It's like the
Yeah.
only thing I slightly like. That in the last track when they part ways, those are the only two I remember soundtrack wise. Everything else is like white noise essentially.
It is. I hate it. I've said it a billion times before, and I'll say it again. The soundtrack for GVK GXK, Godzilla's theme, sounds like a guy trying to play it from memory.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Hate it. Same with Mothra. Mothra's the exact same. Anyway.
What do you mean? Or you mean Mothra's theme from like New Empire?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the exact same. It's like trying to play the Mothra theme from memory.
I don't even remember her theme in New Empire. I
All right.
remember her Cotton one.
The Cotton one is accurate. The one, so picture the original theme for Mothra, and then just skip a few notes and replace them with other notes. That's basically what it is. It's just something that vaguely resembles it's the Great Value version of Mothra's theme, the Walmart brand. Anyway.
I was utterly terrified, and I still do get that fear. I still do get that creeping sense of dread that nothing else can really do for me. But the entire time, it is hard to argue with why Godzilla is destroying everything. He wasn't always a monster. We made him this way. And this core of the character is something that they reinvented very well with Shin Godzilla. He's not a hero or a villain, but he is the antagonist of the movie.
See, he gets it right here. Why can't he get it right in other places?
Because it doesn't suit the narrative every single time that he's trying to make.
He can't be consistent because then it crumbles his worldview. It destroys it. He can't be consistent.
Is not so much the protagonist in the sense as in you can understand why he is destroying things, as in this movie. He is the byproduct of radioactive dumping in the Tokyo Bay, mutating something that was there, and eventually went through many, many metamorphic stages, going from its first stage, which we never saw, to its second, third, fourth, and eventual partway into its fifth form. Making Shin actually have his origin in nuclear waste dumping.
Give me one sec, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. But you guys can keep going. I'll be able to pop back in. I'll probably listen to some of it in between now and then.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of notes for this, so.
Detonation of the bombs is a much more interesting origin, at least from a characterization standpoint, because it doesn't give him this natural predisposition to want to destroy humanity. Rather, the reason he destroys, rather the reason all of this happens, is he is in constant pain because he is a giant radioactive tumor that is constantly mutating.
How many times are we going to hear the exact same thing being described with Shin? Jesus Christ. I'm so tired of hearing it. Every single second when someone brings up Shin and they're trying to praise it, they say the exact same thing. Find new things to praise. We get it. He's a tumor. We get it.
And the female wants to be the president of the United States. That's all I remember.
Jane Woman, that's her name. That's how I remember. She is
Jane Woman.
She is Jane Woman. Her identity, her character is being female.
Also, side note, I understand everyone's praise for Shin Godzilla purely from like a political commentary standpoint, which is pretty fucking solid. But as a movie in itself, from like start to finish structure and everything, to me anyway, and I will say to me, is pretty fucking boring. Because I would argue that Shin Godzilla is probably the only Godzilla movie that has almost ever put me to sleep with the amount of like dialogue heavy isn't an issue, but it's just like so long getting to each endpoint of the film.
Sea Monster says Shin Godzilla's crap. There's my quota for digging into Shin for the day. Okay.
I don't think it's shit. Like I like Shin Godzilla is crap. There's my quota for digging into Shin for the day. I don't think it's like shit. Like I don't think it's a shit movie. Like if I were to, I would argue. Hell, I wouldn't even like call. Like there are bad Godzilla movies, but I wouldn't really call any of them shitty. Not even '98, because that's at least enjoyable to an extent. Godzilla's Revenge is a pretty bad movie with the amount of like reused footage that they use to pull that film off. But, like at the end of the day, it still has like a meaningful message, even if it's for like an elementary level of like standing up for yourself and stand up to bullying. Because that film at least has a message to it.
Bullying is good. I'm tired of people telling me otherwise.
Bullying works these days, and it should be brought back.
We need to bring back bullying. Bullying works. Bullying. I think it was. I don't remember. It was C.S. Lewis or Tolkien that said something about bullying, but it's basically a rite of passage for kids. The closest thing you can get to a rite of passage in their development. You need to be bullied to grow. You need to go through hardships to grow. Bullying is actually pretty based. Anyway,
Anytime something hits him, something injures him in defense, he himself changes and mutates in self-defense, or it is the environment itself. He was adapted to being in the water, his nuclear reactor being designed to cool in water, but when he is exposed to the air, it needs to change. He's building up too much radioactive heat, and he has to flee back into the water so he can simply heal and save himself. He doesn't obtain the atomic ray until after they drop some pretty heavy ordnance on him. When they start dropping freaking bunker busters from US bombers. Then, the laser beams come out. But the duality of Godzilla, not just the destroyer, was shown in a lot of movies. This much softer, from a giant kaiju monster's perspective, have been shown time and time again, I think best exemplified by Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, where Godzilla's primary motivation in that movie is the discovery of a Godzillasaurus egg, which is initially mistaken as a Pteranodon egg.
Pause, because I just wanted to, first of all, I don't want to get blasted by YouTube's copyright system, but also, he is going to say something that kind of harkens back to what I said about instinct and anthropomorphization. Just to sit tight.
By the human, brought back to Kyoto. But while the humans are taking the egg back to Kyoto in the helicopter from Rodan's island, Godzilla shows up and begins to fight Rodan, leading to a mildly humorous scene of Godzilla choking out Rodan before delivering a pretty brutal curb stomping.
You thought that was funny? Amusing?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not tracking.
Okay. Like he thinks that's funny. Fine. All right. Well, to each their own.
Funny is whatever it means to them.
Choking the chicken.
He's literally choking the chicken. Yeah.
Kills Rodan. The next time Godzilla shows up is after the the baby has hatched in Kyoto, where he begins to destroy Kyoto. Why? Because humanity is in possession of a member of Godzilla's species. The Godzillasaurus egg that hatches is not actually related to Godzilla, it is simply another member of his species. He is being very protective of this creature, as well as in this movie, in this continuity, Godzilla is psychic, so he is able to sense the baby. And when Godzilla senses the baby is scared, he actually leaves. He realizes, or at least he's able to tell, that what he is doing, even if it is in the best interest of the newly hatched Godzillasaurus, it's not going to go well because it's scared.
Okay.
So, this is an example of parental instinct more than it is Godzilla being sympathetic. If you, like I said, the nature documentary example, you shoot something from the perspective of the lion seems to be in the right, and if you shoot if you shoot it from the perspective of the prey is in the right. So, like, yeah, he is protective. I am almost certain that most animals that have offspring will tend to protect their children. Not all of them. Pandas suck at being parents, for example. That's a pretty big example of animals not being good parents. But, like, yeah, I feel like most animals would be able to do that. That's just me. I don't know. I'm not a zoologist. But I am almost certain that parents protect their young. That is normal, I think. Why is he's putting so much stock into something that is like so elementary and he's scraping at the bottom of the barrel for compliments, I think.
He's also going all over the place because, like, we went from, I don't know what was before Shin Godzilla. We went from Shin Godzilla, and now we're here at Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2.
Yeah, he did not structure this video. He, like, even the gaffes he made, he didn't cut them. He doesn't shorten the video. He just lets it fly off the dome, and he just corrects himself mid sentence, but doesn't cut it from the video. It's strange. What were you gonna say, Zim? I heard you say something.
No, it's just such a basic point, and like a basic, like it really is like grasping at straws to make this point because it is so full of holes, and yeah, it doesn't offer anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Superman issue where they're saying, "Oh, he's good. He does good things." Yeah, okay. I mean, like, superheroes do that, but like, why? Oh, he just wants to be good. Oh, I feel like that's very elementary to heroes, but why? Oh, he just, like, his parents said so to be good. So be good. Oh, okay, all right. Anyway,
A fairly significant degree of intelligence, just simply beyond the natural protective instincts of protecting a fellow member of your species. In the same movie, after Godzilla destroys Mechagodzilla 2, he goes over to collect the baby again. His previous rampage having scared it off, it's still terrified of Godzilla. But eventually, through the use of one of the psychics, Mikisagusa, they are able to convince the baby to go with Godzilla, that it needs to stay with his own kind. Leading to a very touching scene of Godzilla heading back out to sea after pretty viciously just destroying Mechagodzilla, heading back out into the ocean, and partway through leaving, Godzilla turns around to make sure the baby's following.
you notice how his voice dropped a few decibels, like he's talking in that wounded bird voice.
Yeah.
Soft-spoken and fragile, so you can sell that emotional resonance. God. Yeah, doesn't he sound familiar? Like, the way he talks, his mannerisms. Doesn't he sound familiar, Zim?
Give me 1 sec.
Yeah,
I'll stick through whatever his next point is, and then I'm gonna head off.
yeah. He sounds very familiar. I think. Right. Let us continue
And
with
the
this
baby
thing.
steps out into the water and swims off, just heading back home after he defeated Mechagodzilla. If he just kept on walking. But he didn't. He turned around, checked to see if the baby was still following him. And in the end credits of the movie, you actually see Godzilla and the baby swimming back towards Baz Island. This time, the baby is actually much closer to Godzilla than it was before, implying Godzilla actually stopped or even slowed down his swimming just so the baby could catch up, because
Parents care about their young. More news at 11.
Yeah, okay. Like it's
you just want the baby to
Hey, get
well.
on with it.
Wouldn't it be interesting if Godzilla was like actually abusive? Like that would be interesting, but they're not going to do that. He's just going to show up to Junior and be like, "Hey, it's clobbering time for not bringing him his beer, his radioactive beer." I can't believe
the dark side of Godzilla.
my
Can't see him. Beats his kids. Beats his dead wife.
yeah. Like this beer getter didn't bring me my radioactive beer. I'm gonna beat the crap out of him.
What if Godzilla threw around Junior like King Kong did to Suko?
Yeah, me when I have to kill my beer getter because I'm bored. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, all of this is in a movie where Godzilla is ostensibly the antagonist. The movie is about a human-made mecha to fight Godzilla and protect Japan from Godzilla's destructive warpath. But yet, these are very protagonistic motivations.
No, not necessarily. Like he might be, like I said, he's conflating protagonism with heroism. Like no. Do you guys remember Zim, you've read Berserk. You remember what's his face? Friggin' what's the name of that girl with the STD?
Oh, the ones that were taking care of Casca.
No. I mean, no, I'm not talking about Farnese. I mean the girl with
No, not Farnese. The ones that were like the part of the traveling band who were taking care of her when she was in like her more comatose state.
Yes. Yeah, like
I forget her name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, where she cares about. I think it was a redhead who's like living as a prostitute. I forgot her name.
Yeah, they all were.
Nina, is that the name of the
Yeah, maybe.
I think it might be Nina. Nina cares about her friends. She also sold her crush to a sex cult of Slanesh, so and try to sleep with him to infect him with her STD. So like, yeah, she cares about her family. Like she views her quote unquote sisters as family, but she also tried to do an STD hit on her crush and sell him to Satan. So yeah, like caring about your own is. Why, Max? Why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? Let's continue.
You have my family. I want to get my family back. And you are not going to stop me. And the movie even says as much that they get why Godzilla's doing this. And they basically like, we do whatever we can to protect our own. This is something that actually makes Junior's passing in Godzilla vs. Destroyer
Actually, stop.
a little more heartbreaking.
In fact, if anything, Max Allo has broken his own point by trying to make it agree with him, because ultimately that means Mechagodzilla is far more justified in winning this fight, because given that Godzilla is an antagonistic force who has done nothing but attack humanity, who's to say that as it raises Junior up, Junior would also become antagonistic to humanity, meaning there will be two Godzillas they would have to deal with at one point. Like, humanity in this case is completely in the right to try to lure out Godzilla using Junior to kill him, because Godzilla has not displayed any idea or any nature that he might slow down and not start attacking humanity.
Yeah. The internet died for a second yet again. And it reconnected. Okay. Just TLDR, just in case.
Like, TLDR, if by the logic that you're giving that Godzilla is sympathetic, then therefore Mechagodzilla and humanity are far more sympathetic, because Mechagodzilla is potentially saving far more lives, and on a species level, as Godzilla is protecting its own.
Yeah. I would also like to bring up that this stream might be the most popular in this series. We got 104 views, so that's pretty nice. Must be Godzilla or must be Max Allo. I don't know which one it is. We'll see.
Probably Godzilla.
No, see, because the previous two were also Godzilla, so.
And probably because of guest and the storm too is probably helping.
The storm. Oh, right. I forgot there was a storm. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because here it's.
I'm in sunny-shine Florida.
Same.
It's not snowing down there?
Nope.
No.
No, it's,
Really?
It's sunny and 70 degrees. There is no snow.
Nope.
That's crazy.
Like, it would be fine if there was like at least some rain, because I like the rain, but no, it's sunny right now in the Sunshine State. Anyway, let us continue.
Alright, what's his next point?
As Junior is adopted, he's the no longer living body of Junior, who has grown into mostly adolescence.
Alright, just skip over a movie and go straight to his death, alright?
Roars in grief. There's an almost desperation of Godzilla giving away a lot of his radiation to try to breathe life back into Junior, and it doesn't work.
Parents care about their children. Other breaking news. Water.
Anyway,
liquid.
last week.
Water is a liquid, guys. Did you know that? I bet you guys didn't know that.
Wow.
It's sometimes a liquid, sometimes a solid, sometimes a gas. I bet you guys didn't know that. Such revolutionary thing, by the way.
After this, you see Godzilla as he is burning Godzilla here, where his nuclear reactor is beginning to melt down. A massive surge of power flare up through Godzilla. Throughout the entire movie, he is melting down. And I don't know if this was intended, but I always saw this scene as Godzilla has been suppressing the reaction from going out of control and causing the meltdown as much as he can throughout the movie so far. But his grief at seeing the loss of his adopted son makes him lapse in control for a second, because it's right after this scene you see a massive surge of power come up through Godzilla, and he has to basically release a burst of it, almost like he is in pain physically from the nuclear reactor going out of control.
Is he trying to argue this is the power of love through Godzilla?
Yeah.
Well, wait, let's finish what he has to say.
I feel like that's what it is, but yeah.
Again, Godzilla is a very complex character. Destroya itself is a movie where Godzilla is the hero, or at the least shown in a much more protagonistic sense. But ultimately, he is a destructive force that does exist on Earth. The opening of the movie is in fact him going and destroying Hong Kong. But he is shown very sympathetically in the movie that really all he wants is to protect Junior. And particularly the showing of Godzilla mourning and the absolute wrath he unleashes on Destroya for doing this shows he...
No, notice how he gets angry when he puts on an angry voice when he does that. You know that guy Eric Butts that was reacting to that Rise of Skywalker trailer. Like, there's an emotional moment in the scene and he just puts in a puppy dog face, like, "Aw." This is like the inverse of that. This is what he's. I think that's the inverse of what he's doing. But anyway,
That's like the speaking of like the emotion stuff. That's like one of the big reasons why like I have an issue when it comes to even how I record stuff, to where I don't want to put too much emotion in what I'm saying necessarily, because I don't want my cadence to be part of the impact as to the points that I'm making. I want the actual evidence to speak for itself, rather than how I'm portraying it to impact you in one way or another.
I think you can have both, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I typically do like both. Yeah, a mixture of both purely for entertainment value, like going hyper exaggerated all over the place purely for entertainment's sake. It's not like for any value.
Yeah.
It depends, but like definitely I think like for jokes and stuff that's fine, but like if I'm just presenting a point, I don't want to be like super hyperactive or sound like raising my pitch like I'm doing right now, even though I'm excited to talk about what I'm talking about. I don't want that to be
you're
like
not telling a
thing that's
story.
swaying people. Yeah, exactly.
You're not telling a story. You're trying to make an argument, and for that you gotta you can be intense but not emotional. You're emotional, you start driving into storytelling.
Exactly.
You start to moan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna head off. I gotta get going on some things, but this is a solid enough stream, so I'll say that.
Aw,
Maybe
dude,
not much, but yeah.
you're gonna Jesus, you're gonna miss the best point he makes later.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean,
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, but like, yeah, he's right about to get to this one point that I find it to be hilarious.
okay. What's?
It's right after this, but you can go. I'm not gonna keep you here. You can go if you want.
Yep. All right. Cool. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Jeez, I am dying.
Yeah, no, you sound at some points you sound like you were really dying.
Yeah, I am in not pain, but discomfort. Anyway,
He is much more than just an aggressive creature. He is not a monster. On a much more lighthearted, heroic Godzilla, which began back in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, but I feel is best epitomized in Godzilla vs. Gigan, where he recruits Anguirus to help him fight Gigan and Ghidorah.
Why does it feel like he made this point?
yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like he worded it almost exactly the same too. Like I'm having deja vu.
Yep. I am. Let me just mute myself real quick because I don't want you to hear my hacking and coughing.
Just because Earth's his territory. Again, he's not really saving humanity because humanity does anything good.
Oh no, for some reason it keeps going back to the beginning. I don't know why.
A good Godzilla is one that
Yeah, it's about like right there. Yeah,
has really shown the much more great
about 20 minutes 42. Actually, what's like go back just a little bit more in.
that will fight and protect humanity. The morning and the absolute wrath shows he is much more than just an
Stop real quick. Oh, Watch Together crashed? That's weird because I was just able to pause it because he was talking about Final Wars, and I'm like, he's like, oh, Godzilla's upset because he got trapped in ice. Yeah, Godzilla's also killing humans, so like we're pretty justified in locking him up if that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, like that is. I need to fix that because technical difficulties. We will be right back. Just give us a moment. Zim, you talk.
I'll talk. Yeah.
Yeah, just.
I kind of respond to things in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone's got a question he wants to add, put it right there because I've been trying to look at things. Oh wait, Vic's here too. I love Godzilla 98. There's my 98 appreciation quota for the day. He enjoyed. I'd say Godzilla and Baby Godzilla are an example of Allo parenting, a rare occasion of a species taking care of another's young. Okay. Yes. Like, again, Allo does not want to wrestle with the actual moral implications that comes with Godzilla killing people, and then justifies it by saying, well, we did mutate Godzilla, so therefore, he's just lashing out. We just kind of have to accept the fact that a big giant dinosaur is probably going to kill us. And just overall, that's just a problem that comes with trying to claim every single part of a franchise is valid when it is not. More like medical difficulties. Yeah, well, medical and physical difficulties. Oh, you can't log back in because it shows you're still here. Interesting. Yeah.
It signed me out, but I can't log back in. That is so weird.
There you go. I just sent you a new invite. Let's see if that works now.
Okay. Jeez Louise. My biggest dream, and I'm dying, both on the technical and medical. Ain't that fantastic? It's loading. Here we go. The video is a Mobius strip. Mobius Rift. Alright, I think I'm back, but the video at part is blank. Let me.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is
Interesting.
blank. It does. Oh, there it is. Okay. There it is. Okay. It
I
should.
have it paused, see if you're able to do it now. It does show you're back in.
Yeah, I am back. Let me just
Live a while longer, and maybe let bygones be bygones for now. Again, Monsterverse did a great job of this. We have a whole video going on specifically the scene of Godzilla rising from the depths after Sarada's sacrifice. That coming out in a bit, but that scene does a lot of the same that this scene does, just without Minella. But then there are the Godzilla movies where he is outright the villain. This is your -1. This is your
No.
GMK.
Yes, sure, GMK I will allow, but -1 no, because he has a weird idea that -1 is specifically sociopathic or psychopathic when he's pretty much in line with how Godzilla's always been, and he has a weird fixation with 54 being sympathetic because he likes to use outside sources. It's a stupid argument. He makes it every single time. And of course, this is just like the beginnings of it because it's one of his earlier videos.
yeah. Another thing. Did he say that Godzilla deserves to smack us around? Did he say? When did he say that? While I was away from the
Say that
room.
again? He just now, right as you started playing it, as he's talking about the villainous Godzillas.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Godzilla's line is completely arbitrary. The language, the language he's using is almost like he's submitting to a god. Like it's the kind of language I would expect to hear from a suicide cultist in universe that worships Godzilla like a god. The way he talks about him, it's almost creepy. Don't you think? I think it's pretty creepy.
It's not creepy. It's just a weird. It's just weird because I know how he's basing this logic off, and it comes across as just really amateurish.
I don't know. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Hmm.
Anyway.
This is Dark Godzilla at his darkest, grimmest, and most violent. This is another project we actually have an entire video on, as I do have a lot more thoughts to say about specifically -1. As I do have a lot more thoughts on specifically -1 and GMK specifically, but we're saving that for that project because this is really more about a Godzilla itself. GMK kind of took this to the absolute logical extreme, GMK being Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All Out Attack, but GMK is just a lot shorter. Where in that movie, Godzilla is not what you really think he is. In that movie, he is actually a supernatural entity, reanimated by the souls of those slain because of Japan during World War II, and coming back to exact vengeance on Japan. Which, if you know about Japan during World War II, they did a lot of messed up stuff. Again, not going to go into that because that is beyond the scope of this video, but even that aggressive Godzilla at least does have a somewhat valid justification for his wrath he unleashes. Now, I love GMK.
Can you stop real quick?
Ah, here it
I love
comes.
I love how he says that there is a valid justification, but then doesn't really explain it. Because I would say that like he doesn't, because ultimately the goal of GMK Godzilla is essentially ethnic genocide.
But that is genocide is cool, Zen. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Genocide is fun for the Emperor.
Oh, the Emperor! Well, Xenocide's fun.
Yeah, no, for Space King. No, girls. Oh no! They added they finally added the female custodies. How do you feel about that?
Like, I've generally, small tangent aside, I like the concept of the custodies. I find cool. As characters, I find them to be exceptionally insufferable. So the idea that now there's female custodies, I
They're,
guess
they're gonna be unbearable.
The drapes now match the attitude because they've always had that snotty "we're better than you" attitude, while also, you know, hey, your one job was guarding the Emperor. Look how that turned out. Like the custodians have of course there are agents working out in places where they're needed, but ultimately the Space Marines, some of them might have turned on the Emperor, but they and humanity as a whole have been the ones that have held the line for 10,000 years.
Yeah. I don't typically keep up with Warhammer stuff, but I just know because I know that lore-wise, having female Space Marines is just like not a thing. That's just not possible, like physically.
Well, the same would go for the female custodians as well. But
Yeah.
like, you know, it's that again. Tangent aside, let's keep going.
Yeah. Say bye-bye to Henry Cavill, Amazon and Games Workshop. Say bye.
Fucking Godzilla movie I ever saw when I was younger. And I really wish I could find the freaking VHS tape that I recorded this movie on. But I love this movie. This is just spectacle nonsense fun at its greatest.
That is the point I wanted to pause on. That is the point I wanted to have CGS stay for.
Not really the point I paused for, but I assume you have thoughts, so I'll let you speak.
It's such a bizarre thing to say. I think this is like the epitome of like conflating tone with premise. Nonsensical fun. It is nonsense. The movie is nonsense. Do you fundamentally agree with that statement that GMK is nonsense?
No, it's not.
No.
Like,
it's like one of the few good movies.
There are definitely like several good movies, but my problem is that anytime there's like fantastical elements in a story, they'll be like, "Oh, it's like crazy nonsense," and I'm like, "This is why no one takes speculative fiction seriously. It's because of people making comments like this." And I understand that they're trying to like say that as a positive, but to the unengaged person that you are trying to convince, you are doing more harm than good.
It's just because when they say nonsense, they're going to assume everything is nonsense from the plot to the character
like,
writing.
What do you mean by nonsense? Yeah, exactly.
Like he means premise. He obviously means premise, but that's not how it's gonna come across. So you gotta be very careful with that. You can't just say that. You can't say things and expect us to agree on a fundamental level. You need justification. You can't just say stuff. Anyway.
And I really applaud the creativity of trying to reinvent a character as iconic as Godzilla almost 50 years after his initial introduction. But I don't find villainous Godzilla to be a particularly compelling character, because it kind of misses the whole point of Godzilla.
No, it does not miss the whole point. It's because you have a misread of 54, and because a lot of people prefer villainous Godzilla, and those are people that you are usually against when it comes to your comparisons, and because of your entire misread of the franchise, that's why you don't like villainous Godzilla. It has nothing to do with any actual objective points that you are making.
Yeah. It's the logical endpoint. You see what I mean when I say it's retroactive? You finally understand? It's so... We're back at the framework. We're back at paradigms. This is his paradigm. There it is, right here. There's also more to it that is to come. He's going to say it in a few, so let's just keep going just in case. Because he's going to say something really, really, really head-scratching.
He's sympathetic. You do need to be horrified of him and terrified of him. And you are terrified of Godzilla in GMK. He is a single-minded monster force of destruction in this.
I'm gonna speed it up a little bit because I cannot stand how slow he talks.
Put it at like
1.25.
Put it at 1.5. I can handle 2 times speed, but 1.5 I think is.
No, but I'm trying to mind the audience. I don't want the audience to like You know, because some people are not going to be able to keep up. So I want to keep it fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just wait till OBS reconnects because it just disconnected. Again. Golly. Golly. Are you reconnected, OBS? Please reconnect. No? Okay. Well, recording it is then. There we go. It's finally connected.
This movie. But a bit of that sympathy, or at least most of that sympathy, is kind of lost when he delights in the destroying of the soft, squishy human things.
He's always done that.
It is
Almost like if that's the point.
That Godzilla's, like, as a character from his inception, has always been fine with killing people.
Yeah. It's almost
Just
as if
wrong.
it's part of his identity, Allo.
a popcorn fun entertainment movie. Seeing him fight Ghidorah, seeing him fight Baragon, seeing him fight Mothra and the human people is very spectacular. And I do it that they actually have the humans beat him, or at least partially beat him. The sort of odd part of the movie is, despite Ghidorah being in the movie, Ghidorah is actually the hero. And Godzilla's characterization is actually far more in line with a traditional Ghidorah portrayal, or something like a Destroya or Space Godzilla, who is just an outright destroyer. But I do like the human characters. It is one of the Godzilla movies that does show you can have good human characters in a Godzilla movie. Is it bad that, despite the fact that I think this is not a great version of Godzilla, I actually do really root for Godzilla in this movie?
What a bizarre thing to say.
Yeah, that's odd.
That's such... You see what I mean? Suicide cultist. Human bad, monsters good. It's so... I'm creeped out. I am a little uncomfortable.
I'm not creeped out. I'm just like, it's so stupid. It's really dumb.
I mean, I don't want to assume malice where I can just assume ignorance, but, like, that's such a... Was it misanthropic? Not misandrous. Misanthropic? Is that a misanthropic?
Misanthropic.
It is
misanthropic.
It's so misanthropic. I don't like that. Don't you like humans? I thought Allo, because you're a human. So I don't know about you. I like humans. That's just me. I like humans, especially the Latinas. But I like humans. Okay, I'm not. Good God.
Just me? Okay, just checking. Again, -1 does a lot of things differently.
No, it
and again,
doesn't.
That's why we have the whole separate video on -1. But something like what GMK did, you do lose a little bit of that moral complexity thought about Godzilla when he is just an aggressive, single-minded monster of destruction that literally lives for nothing more than to destroy everything. But it also is a movie that does get me to root for the humans just as much as I root for Godzilla sometimes. And as we kind of touched on last, is reinventions of Godzilla. We sort of peppered this throughout the entire video so far, but this is the section really on reinventions of Godzilla. And I think the MonsterVerse has done a fantastic job of this. His origin is expressly not linked to humanity in this movie. Instead of being an ancient creature that was mutated by humanity's utilization and mishandling of nuclear power, he has simply always been. Again, really leaning much more into that idea that he is a force of nature, rather than a mistake and byproduct of the Castle Bravo
Wouldn't
test.
that make him therefore inconsistent with Godzilla's original character then?
Yeah. And even still, I don't
Like,
believe, like, at all that the MonsterVerse is, like, a good adaptation of... Like, you could have, like, it was close in 2014. Not completely, but it was kind of close.
I would say, like, 2014 is probably the closest you get to, like, a pretty serviceable pop culture interpretation of Godzilla. I think King of the Monsters as well, because ultimately it's like, oh, it's Godzilla. He's, like, more realistic, so that satisfies the normies, and he fights the monsters. But,
Yeah.
like, I would say as a character, I think that a major misstep of the MonsterVerse in 2014 as a whole is that Godzilla has always been Godzilla. Like, I could buy him being, like, a massive, like, creature, but, like, his powers, his abilities being natural to him, I believe is a mistake. I believe Godzilla should always be connected or having given powers from nuclear weapons. And I believe an earlier script for 2014 had it that Godzilla was always pretty large for his, like, species, but the nuclear weapons are what gave him his powers.
Yeah. And also, like, would you say that 2014 is a diluted / watered down version of 54?
No, I wouldn't even say it's a diluted of 54. I think it's a diluted 2000. I think 2000 is a tighter film. I think it characterizes Godzilla better. I think it just has better action scenes overall. And I would say character-wise, its humans are more interesting to watch.
I might have to rewatch it because I found that film to be boring. So I might have to rewatch
No,
it.
I would say that to be honest, I'm not. You watch the American or the Japanese version?
I think I watched the Japanese version. Like I
The
remember.
Japanese version ponders more than the American does. The American version is tighter. The music is a little bit more bombastic. So I would say it is important if you want to get the message of the film across, you want to watch the original, but purely as just do I want to watch this film? Watch the American version.
Yeah, I might do that because like I do remember my first memory with 2000 was I wanted to watch Final Wars. I confused Final Wars with 2000s. I ended up watching 2000 and I was just completely underwhelmed. That's all.
2000s is one of the Godzilla films that I know the community as a whole feels the American edit is better than its Japanese version. That's a pretty big community I like to make.
Yeah. Anyway, let us keep going if chat doesn't say anything. Okay, let's go.
With his origin, he always was there, and that he is from a line of apex super predator kaijus, it gives him no natural predisposition to want to destroy humanity, which does make him a much more favorable character.
No.
Go ahead.
In fact, actually, no. It would give him more reason to want to attack humanity because, given the fact that humanity is able to produce essentially man-made food stores for him or are treading on his natural environment, there is more reasons for him to want to attack humanity because they're all bound within a naturalistic framework.
Yeah, did you mention the nuclear power plant thing? Cuz like I said, I don't know, I didn't say this. These creatures eat radiation. So and humans are in possession of nuclear power plants. They kind of need that, for energy, that kind of stuff. So if they go after it, then yeah, I would feel like it would make sense. It would make logical sense for these creatures to start attacking humanity. So I don't know if that's what you said. I might have zoned out.
What I just said, yeah.
Okay, I never mind. I zoned out then. I zoned out. I don't.
Good, don't worry.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway,
Light.
almost done.
You can also have him destroy humanity and level cities, and not really be as this feels out of character because we simply are nothing to him. Once again, he isn't good or evil. He simply is. He doesn't bother with humanity because humanity is nowhere on his basically radar of things that matter. He's just
Except by the events of King of the Monsters, it's contextualized that Godzilla did have a relationship with humans, and going by other material, yes, Godzilla does see humans as something. That's just wrong.
Common Allo L.
Yeah, common LOL.
Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going.
defending his territory. It just so happens his territory is all of Earth, and that can unintentionally lead to him protecting humans. If something challenges him, if that is humanity, he will not hesitate to lay the smackdown, as we saw when Apex Cybernetics was screwing around with trying to make Mechagodzilla. But he only destroyed Apex Cybernetics facilities, not the rest of humanity. An understanding he showed when, after Serizawa revived him, he, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, one of my absolute favorite scenes in the entire series, rises from the deep after Serizawa revives him, he does another breathing the atomic breath into space, dispelling the clouds, and would go and intimidate humanity, showing, I'm still here, I'm stronger than you, I will deal with you after we face the three-headed space dragon. Don't forget that.
Is that what happened? Is that actually?
I guess you could do that as an interpretation. It's been a while since I've read the Caught novelization, so I'm not sure what their read kind of was for that scene. But yeah, I'll just give it to him. I don't care really.
See, Monster says 2000 was boring, 2014 is a diluted 2000s. I was asking a question, C Monster, because I wanted to compare, because I thought it would have been clever if I said 2014 is to 54 what Dune is to the Denis Villeneuve Dune adaptations. That's what I wanted to say, because I thought it sounded clever and accurate, but no, that I wasn't making any claims with that. Let's keep going.
The scream. We are not done with this yet. I just have bigger things to worry about than you. Something that shows he is incredibly intelligent. Something that Mothra's connection with Godzilla actually shows even further. Mothra is preservation of nature. Mothra is objective, undeniable good in every installment she is in. and
No.
that she allies with Godzilla
No.
shows.
Let me, yeah. Go ahead.
Mothra has killed innocent people before. Mothra's actions are not objectively good. Just because Mothra does justifiable things does not therefore mean she's objective good.
Yeah, I've always said that, like, at least in the MonsterVerse, like she is like, her idea of goodness is very arbitrary. And not just that, the other versions, because my memory, if my memory doesn't fail me, like, she alludes to vague notions of goodness. I've said this before, but like, does she is that even true? Because I want to say that it is true, but again, like anything
What's true?
that that the notions of goodness she appeals to are completely arbitrary.
Well, like, so, given the fact that we now have the Mothra novel translated, Mothra as a character is very much tied to a very particular form of Japanese nationalism, in the sense that, like, as a character, Mothra combats what is ostensibly the U.S. the continued U.S. occupation of Japan, and is more of like a symbol of Japan being more self-governing, because it's a response to like the articles in Japan's constitution in regards to military bases still being on Japanese soil and things like that. And the U.S. has continued like taking of Japanese resources as well as those of like Pacific Islanders and quote unquote colonialism, things of that nature. That's really what Mothra represents in like the novel. That is toned down far more in the movie. And I would say, like, as a character, Mothra is justified in trying to take her fairies back. However, the problem always with these good monsters is that they never contextualize it in a way that doesn't discount that possibly, in a sense, are harmed or killed in their actions. Like, that's why I think like characters like Ultraman or Gamera, even to a certain degree, are better, because they actually take the time to distinguish that, like, yes, they do things that will harm innocents and they need to be better at that, or that is a big conflict of their films.
Yeah. So the internet just like went out and went back. OBS just disconnected. So you could like TLDR that point.
TLDR, Mothra has evolved a lot as a character, and I think that she is not the best example of a heroic or objectively good monster. I would say the best characters of that are like Ultraman, but if we need a specific kaiju, not a, like a Kyodai hero, then Gamera. I'd say Gamera does it a little bit better than Mothra.
Yeah. So like, would you say that it, from the very inception, would you say that her ideas of, not the inception, but throughout the entire films, like her notions of goodness, her philosophy has become like a little bit more vague, more arbitrary, or
I'd say just not vague, but just more like, I guess you could say universal, which could also be considered vague. But I would say that as like a general like vague notions of good, Mothra does better as the series goes on, because she isn't directly like attacking humans in a lot of cases. It's when she has interactions with humans where her morals and her message becomes more muddy.
yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to get that cleared up, just so, because I want to know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these things. So yeah, all right, let's keep going.
Even if indirectly, Godzilla will protect. Not necessarily soft, squishy humans. Even if Mothra actually does value humanity, as humanity.
What
is
does
a
that even
natural
mean,
part of the
though?
Earth.
That's a big problem I always have with like these videos. Is what does that even mean? Like the Earth as a good.
Like I said, like nature is placed above humanity instead of like it doesn't have any synergy with humanity, because ideally nature and humanity would be in synergy, but nature is being placed as like the top good. Like I said, it is the found, like it's almost as if it's any morality or any ethical system you might have is ultimately informed by nature and nothing else, which is a fallacious statement, I would say. And it's just simply not true. Because, I mean, if you look at animal life, again, they don't have sapience. Like, they cannot commit moral evil because, I mean, even then, calling it moral evil is redundant. But, like, evil is an act of the will. A will presupposes a person, which presupposes a mind, soul. Animals don't have that. If you're talking about animals, comparing them to these monsters, no, you cannot place them. They're not above morality. They are separate from it because they don't have the mind for it. And if you want to say, oh, these creatures are indeed sentient, that kind of makes them pretty evil. Just saying. You can't just say that they're above morality and then have them commit evil. That's not how that works. Anyway, let's continue.
Despite how this can be. But despite the fact that she's actually significantly weaker than Godzilla, she's not above calling him out when he needs to be called out, as Godzilla Kong the New Empire showed in a fantastic scene. Wish I could use the footage here, but all I can say is that scene is great. As it again shows a lot more depth to Godzilla's character, that he really just likes to fight things. Even if it is for the greater good, he still loves to fight.
Not necessarily. I mean, in 2014 in King of the Monsters, he did need to fight the Mutos and Ghidorah. But in GVK, he doesn't need to fight Kong. Because you remember the established reasons were completely vague and arbitrary, because Kong realistically would not be able to pose a threat to Godzilla, especially if what Adam Wingard said about Godzilla holding back was true. But if Kong needing to die is imperative, he could have killed him at any capacity. If he wanted to submit, he also could have made him do that much earlier, in their first encounter, especially in GVK. But he just swims away. It's just so all over the place. It's so vague, it's arbitrary. We say that a lot, but it is. It genuinely is. Sea Monster says, "Oh God, more GXK glazing. Please stop, my guy." Yeah. Zim, you got anything? No. You online?
I just realized my mic was muted. No, like pretty much what you said, I am of the same like feeling of.
No. You can't say it like that. No. You gotta say, the Virgin, in my opinion, versus the Chad, as a matter of fact. You have to depict yourself.
Well, no, the Chad Zim versus the Virgin Allo. Or no, the Chad Serrato versus the Virgin Allo. My opinion is superior.
We have depicted you as the crying soy jack. Your take is now invalid. This is how you win media literacy arguments, guys.
We are the media literate now.
Dude, I swear to God, if someone calls me media literate, not media illiterate, media literate, I am killing myself. I would rather
kill myself now. I serve many purposes. I have many functions. I won't kill myself now.
I would rather you call me a slur than call me media literate. Calling me particularly media literate, because that title is so snobbish and just lame and disgusting. I hate how people have turned that. It's like little kids when they discover a new word and they start using it to sound smart. That's basically what it feels like whenever people say the word media literate in anything. So like if you call me that, I will be so disgusted. I would prefer if you call me a slur. Call me. There's many to pick from because I'm Hispanic. You have an entire cornucopia. Anyway, let us continue.
He is painted very, very heroically here, but he does have very antagonistic moments. Things like the fight scene on the ocean in Godzilla vs. Kong, and it lends itself very well to scenes where Godzilla is rampaging through cities while fighting other monsters. It doesn't feel out of character because he doesn't care about humanity.
No, that's not what that means. No, it is out of character completely. Especially, this is why I say that he's a terrible protector. He's terrible at his job. Because there's so many things that he could have retroactively done. This is why the cave paintings are such crutches. Like they handicap your story. When you say, "Oh, this happened before and it was going to happen again. Why didn't it happen then?" "Oh, because we can't have a story now." "Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Thanks."
He's just fighting the thing he needs to fight. Our buildings are kind of an irrelevant thing, but they can be a little bit handy for Godzilla, like when he wants to take a nap in the Roman Coliseum. And it lends itself to some great spectacle fights that don't feel out of place, things like the Hong Kong fight scene in Godzilla vs. Kong. At the same time, it lends itself to some pretty silly and fun moments, things like Godzilla just slamming Ghidorah through the building in Boston in King of the Monsters.
That's silly?
Being pretty me like again, these words are arbitrary because what he's trying to say is me like thing, me make thing happy, therefore thing good. That's pretty much all he's saying.
He said that Godzilla dragging Ghidorah's face through a building is silly. Why? Why is that silly? Are you going to elaborate on that? No?
He never will.
No? Okay. Okay. I guess you can just say things. Max, words have meaning. You can't just say stuff. No, you know what? No, I think Max Allo deserves respect. Like, he opens his mouth and hopes for the best. That's Giga Chat
Well,
energy.
again, it is just me like me think thing good. Therefore, let me just pull a few disparate elements and see if point make is good.
Yeah. Me when I open my mouth and hope for the best. That's
Essentially, yeah.
Chad energy. If you admit that, I would if he admitted that, I would respect him so much. I'd be like, you know what, based, you, based. I respect that. I highly respect that. If you're just saying stuff, I like that. Because I do the same thing sometimes. When I'm just goofing around, I'm just opening my mouth and hoping something funny comes out. I lend my mouth. Listen, I do not have Riz or aura. I have a fool's tongue and a deep commitment to nonsense.
You just have hype moments in aura. That is it. There's nothing else.
I am the hype. Anyway, let us keep going. We're almost done.
Or, as mentioned, the Godzilla taking a nap in the Coliseum. And things like after the fight against Mechagodzilla, he shows respect to Kong for his, well, tag team fight against him, but also the fact that he put up resistance against Godzilla enough to earn his respect. Godzilla won 2 of the 3 fights against Kong in that movie, so he knew he could take Kong in a 3rd fight. He just simply chose not to because 1, Godzilla was tired, and 2nd, again, Kong did earn Godzilla's respect. For now.
Why? What do you mean he earned his respect? Like, if all you have to do as an Alpha Titan is to earn Godzilla's respect is to stand up to him, why would Godzilla kill any Alpha ever? Like Ghidorah, for example. Because remember, Godzilla thought Kong was a threat to his status, which he wasn't. If he thinks the same thing about Ghidorah, by that logic, Ghidorah should not have been killed. So, you want to explain that or no? He won't.
No, it just he's not gonna explain it. It doesn't make sense.
No, it does not.
At least, for now. But, you come back into Godzilla's turf, he will not hesitate to smack you down. Monster vs. Godzilla is by far the best all-encompassing Godzilla to bring in a lot of the silliness and a lot of the seriousness, and bring in a very intelligent, very multi-dimensional version of Godzilla. One where his aggressiveness is very justified, he is trying to assert his dominance over the other kaiju of Earth because he is the strongest, and after Ghidorah usurped him, a lot of the other monsters think maybe they can challenge Godzilla.
So the justification is strength-based, power-based, right?
Might makes right. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Might makes right.
I'm fine with that as a concept, but I don't think that's what this is happening. I don't think that's what this is. Not necessarily.
And you just get bad disposition from Godzilla. He is just tired of all of these monsters trying to step out of line, and he's gotta put the youngins back in their place. But the only part of Godzilla we've really yet to see is the much more parental side of Godzilla.
That's not necessary. That's not necessary. You don't need that. It's not like an imperative thing. Calm down.
Hopefully they bring this in. They don't go with Manila, but they instead bring in maybe Baby Godzilla like they had in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. The only real issue with Godzilla in the MonsterVerse movies is they did just make him a bit too strong. Because it's kind of hard to make a compelling story where Godzilla can literally bulldoze everything in a few seconds and still have a relatively long fight scenes that actually make sense, which is why
This is like...
No, she didn't bulldoze Shimo, and that fight was still boring. So what do you mean? He struggled throughout that entire fight, but that fight sucked.
I wouldn't call it... It was boring, but that's not an argument I would use, because it lends it to the subject.
Well, no, because the point that he's making is that, well, Godzilla's too strong because he bulldozes everything, and fights where he struggles are more compelling. That's the point that he's making. He does that in the New Empire, and I'm sorry, that fight was awful.
No, it was. It was set up poorly. It was executed poorly. The choreography was not consistent. It violated so many animation. It's terrible. It's a terrible fight. But on top of that, like, I mean, I do think there's like the one good point he makes, that because yes, Godzilla is overpowered in this universe. Thing is, though, he doesn't use his powers to their fullest. Yeah, no, I don't think he uses his powers to his fullest, or whenever. And what I mean by his fullest, I mean strategically to its fullest. He doesn't use it strategically at all.
Like, the only thing that I could say is strategic about the GSK fight isn't even really properly explained in the film, because I wouldn't know that for a fact unless, like, it was said in external material, which is one of the reasons why he evolved the way he is because he was able to heat up his body more than he originally was able to, and that's how he could counter Shima's ice, which is why you see him kind of break out of the ice during the zero gravity fights to continue to charge at her.
But
But again,
even then, like his
I wouldn't-
atomic breath would be able to do the same thing. I mean, it's ice.
like the only response is that like there's a certain power threshold that at his base form he couldn't do, and because of the power up, that's why he's able to do it. But then at that point, it just becomes vague notions of power scaling.
It is
which is,
extremely
like-
vague. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not because like it's ice, dude. It's ice. You're telling me he can't break through ice in his normal form? Why would that be an impossibility? Is this super ice? Is this like super hyper dry ice? What is?
essentially, yeah, like essentially like essentially absolute zero. But then at that point, it's like this Godzilla can't beat absolute zero, but Kiryu like it's vague notions of power scaling, neither here nor there. Let's continue.
You follow Kong in the movie, and Godzilla's a little bit out of focus. But who knows? Maybe with the primordial kaiju, we'll start to see Godzilla meet his match. Or just bring in the aliens. But you all knew that this was coming. Godzilla 98 or Zilla. We do need to talk about this.
I don't have any notes on Zilla. I left them all up to you. So
God. Okay, continue. I'll tell you when to stop.
I feel it would be a bit of a disservice to not talk about this version. This is a very bad representation of Godzilla for a long, long list of reasons. It misses the main point of Godzilla in that he cannot be harmed by traditional force multiplication explanation message, as it misses the main point of Godzilla cannot be by traditional conventional systems used by the military, and it is ended by puny missiles. He is not nearly as large, he is not nearly as intimidating. He does lack his iconic atomic ray, and a whole lot more that I really am not going to go into right now, as that is saved for another project we're working on. But that being said, even as a bad representation of Godzilla, it is not in every way flawed. There actually are, but there is a few parts of this Godzilla they actually did get right. One of them being the fundamental incompatibility of Godzilla with humans, as in the main conflict is the two things cannot exist in the present way that we are.
Stop.
This non
No, Godzilla has always had a malicious incompatibility with human, which is why we see Godzilla killing humans on screen in the original film, whereas in 98, they specifically have Godzilla not directly kill humans, except unless they hurt him in a specific way that we humans can understand and sympathize with. So that's already a flaw with 98, because 98 is not immune to conventional weapons. He is no longer a terrifying force that needs to be contended with in the most extreme circumstances. Essentially just a problem animal that can be put down with the right strategy. Given the munitions and resources that the United States military could have fielded at the time of 1998, Godzilla would have been killed with the proper strategy much quicker, or even in the scenario the film lays out, had they used the missiles before they'd used the tanks and small arms fire, Godzilla probably would have been dead, or just point that might be able to escape. The idea that Mark says in this video is still something that doesn't make a whole sense of character. So again, it is incompatible with Godzilla's original character, like you originally say, and then trying to state otherwise because you need to appease the 98 fans because you don't want to upset anyone is silly
and cowardly.
and cowardly. Yes.
malicious incompatibility is kind of what drives the entire story. That it was instead simply French Polynesia nuclear testing that mutated an iguana into Godzilla. I do applaud the attempt to reinvent it, even for as bad of a reinvention as this was, again, completely missing the point of Godzilla. I do at least applaud the attempt. Godzilla only becomes outright malicious and aggressive towards humanity after we destroy Madison Square Garden, where Godzilla's nest is, giving Godzilla a reason to actually destroy humanity. In a lot of ways,
Again, stop.
This actually does make this
Again, 54, 55, 62, 64, Godzilla has always been antagonistic for his own reasons. He's never had a direct reason to be prompted towards aggression outside of his initial mutation. So that's, again, a misreading of Godzilla at his core character, which makes Max Hella wrong, and therefore trying to relate it to 98 is, again, wrong. Continue.
Godzilla fairly similar to the original Godzilla in the part of the story we actually never got to see. But again,
Stop.
It misses the...
Again, it's so as you can see right there, that proves my point. The Max Allo has a complete misreading of 54, and based on other videos, which we're probably not going to show today, is an extremely deep-seated issue with his reading. So if he thinks that 98 is similar to 54 because 98 is non-hostile and sympathetic like the original, that is completely wrong, is contradicted by multiple sources, and as a result how can you trust him as an authority or even to have a proper opinion on Godzilla if this basic fact is incorrect? It's cowardly. It makes no sense.
Conventional weapons do not harm Godzilla, and this thing still gets beaten by conventional weapons. So, problem. Maybe it's I just have a bit of a soft spot for this movie because I actually did watch it a whole lot when we were going up to my grandmother's cottage. We'd watch it on the road trip there and the trip back because we didn't have cable there. So I did watch this movie quite a bit. And the Godzilla, the series TV show that followed up on it, I also did heavily enjoy. So maybe I do have a bit of a soft spot for that. But I do think everything does deserve its criticism, and I do at least think at least some of its points do deserve a little bit of defending, even if...
Like Godzilla's character, for example, that deserves criticism. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
You're gonna be consistent with that or no?
Or even the fact that the only reason why Godzilla series is loved by people is because the creators behind it specifically wanted to reintroduce those elements that Emmerich didn't want in the first place. And Emmerich was like, no, my Godzilla doesn't choose those things. And they were like, no, this is what people want from a Godzilla. And as a result, that's the only reason why you get the atomic breath in the moon. It has nothing to do with Emmerich or a desire to make this Godzilla more faithful from its creatives. So the Godzilla the series is good in spite of Emmerich, not because of him, or because of the base idea of this Godzilla is being redeemable.
All right, go on.
If this is not a very good depiction of Godzilla. It is not completely horrendous, though. But I did like things like it was shown attacking the fishing boat as it was looking for food. I do like that, at the very least, for as goofy as Matthew Broderick's character Nico Totopoulos was, I do like that he was a human that was genuinely interested and curious about Godzilla, to a degree respects Godzilla, or at least this version of Godzilla. Which, in a Godzilla movie, I think is what you need most from a human character. Someone who...
Stop. Okay, we have those characters all the time. That does not justify any of the actions that he takes or even his characterization, and how there are many scenes that are supposed to elicit a kind of humor to take away some of the tension that these scenes have, and if anything, just serve to have more levity than they ought to.
Notice how he completely avoids talking about the plot, the character, the world building, for any of these movies for that matter.
Maybe not of Godzilla, but someone who is interested in Godzilla, someone who will show Godzilla the respect it does need, and it does deserve.
It deserves respect. What do you think, Zim?
No.
Okay.
No, it does not. Stop it. You're misreading 54 and you're misreading 98 and you're comparing the two, which is an even worse sin.
Monster, as a character, there is a lot you can do with Godzilla. And you can't really separate the story from the character, and you can't really separate the character from the story. We need silly Godzilla, as goofy as dancing on Planet X is.
No, we don't.
Just as much as we need dark, serious Godzilla.
Why do we need the silly? And another thing, too, is like, I would wonder if he would be saying the same thing if the Showa era never went in a sillier route.
I think the only reason why is because there are silly Godzilla movies, and again, because they are Godzilla movies that have been made, they justify themselves by having been there.
Yeah, their existence is self-referential and, what's it called? They're perspicuous. That's the word. They're perspicuous. Their own existence justifies their existence. It's almost childish. Don't you think? Yeah.
The fans do need to respect and acknowledge both halves of this, as that is what made Godzilla as iconic as he is. But it is not just us that does need to respect this legacy. So does Toho, and so does Legendary. After all, some of my favorite Godzilla movies were the Heisei films, and some of the Millennium films, where they combine this over-the-top absurdity with straight-faced, relatively grim telling of those rather absurd stories. You have Godzilla vs. Biollante, where a father who lost his daughter in his misguided grief combines Godzilla's DNA with a rose bush that, because again psychics exist in this timeline, contains the consciousness, or at least he believes the consciousness, of his daughter.
Is Biollante a George? Because she has a W. Bush.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm going to cartel you.
Oh no. Hey, I like Dragon Ball. You can't do that.
Joke's on you. I'm black.
Oh.
We forgo those rules.
No, you okay, One Piece.
I actually am not a big... well, like I'm not gonna say like I have been watching more and more One Piece. It's out of the like the Holy Trinity, like One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. That was the one I watched the least of when I was younger.
Yeah, I'm not
But
watching.
one of my friends is a big One Piece fan, ironically enough. So that'd work on him, but not me.
Yeah, no, like I say that one of my friends, well, two of them actually. One of them is from the military. The other I've known for quite a while. They love One Piece, both of them. I might give it a chance if they make me sit through it, but I don't know that they will. But like, nah, I don't. It doesn't really grab my attention the way Dragon Ball does. Doesn't scratch that same itch. Anyway, let us keep going.
And after that plant is going to no longer survive because it was damaged, because the people attacked his lab, in his desperation, he incorporates Godzilla's DNA into the bros to hope Godzilla's regenerative healing factor can save the plant. Unintentionally, this creates Biollante. Godzilla vs. Ghidorah has time travelers from the future coming back to destroy Godzilla by traveling back to World War II to remove Godzillasaurus from the island that the H-bomb tests were on, preventing him from getting mutated and allowing Japan to become the most powerful country in the future. Yes, that is a story that is told, and they tell it straight-faced, and it works.
Yeah, almost like Godzilla primarily played straight and serious instead of silly.
It works.
Thank you for proving my point, Allo.
Versus Ghidorah works.
Like, there's a lot of like small little things that you could do could fix up Ghidorah's story, but
Sea Monster, you heard that? He said Godzilla versus King Ghidorah works. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about? I bet he's pissed. Anyway,
hey,
what was that? You sound weird.
I did a new thumbnail for him, so he should not be that pissed at me.
GVKG does not work. No. I think they tried to do a Terminator story with because I think at the time Terminator was popular. No.
Yeah, Terminator was popular at the time.
Yeah, I figured. Oh God, my nose. Anyway, let's keep going.
You have Godzilla's Mechagodzilla against Mechagodzilla, sorry, which is the Millennium Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla story, where they raise the original Godzilla's skeleton, build a robot around it to fight Godzilla. And the soul of the original Godzilla possesses Kiryu and makes it rampage and destroy things. And again, it's very absurd, but also there is a grim, or at least a very dark, serious nature to these, in that the soul of the original Godzilla still wants to destroy humanity. That it is still humanity's mistakes that lead to what we get. And then there's Godzilla versus Megagyrus, where humanity literally builds
Megagyrus.
He said Desotroya. I wouldn't put it past him to mispronounce everything else. Desotroya. I'm still reeling from that.
Black hole cannon to try and destroy Godzilla, and it just doesn't work, and it creates a time machine that allows the Megagyrus to come to the future. And again, it's all absurd, but there is a darkness to these stories that they don't flinch from the silliness. That the best Godzilla is the best Godzilla stories are the ones that can combine the silly and the serious, just as the best Godzilla, the character, is the ones that can combine the sympathy for the character and the terror of the monster into one. The Monsterverse has done a fantastic job of showing this pure joy, and while they could definitely stand to err on the side of working a bit more on the human characters and making things a little bit more serious,
Or fixing literally everything about the world building, the plot, the character writing, everything. They could fix all of that. They're not going to, but they could, in theory. Yeah.
I do love those movies. I would more than gladly grab a bucket. I would more than gladly get a bucket of popcorn. That's the reason I bought this thing. Go sit down and watch those movies day in, day out, because there is a pure joy that I get from those movies. But that is not to say I do not enjoy the much more serious Godzilla movies every once in a while, and those do work for a number of reasons. The recent successes of -1 and even the historic fondness that Shin Godzilla has shows that the original movie's nature still has a place today. But we mustn't let Godzilla go down the route of pure silliness and camp and have it turn into what the Transformers is these days. Just as we can't allow Godzilla to go down the road of dark grimness and become the DC movies. We need the fun, we need the serious, and both play off each other extremely well.
We need them, he says. We need them. Like it is an imperative thing that we need.
We do not need both.
You cannot have both.
What a wonderful day.
I don't have the energy to make the meme, so just yeah.
Imagine it in your head, guys.
Imagine it, yeah. Because I'm dying.
Where Godzilla goes from here, anyone's guess. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot more on this channel. Talking about the movies, the monsters, in a much more one-on-one basis, and more discussion-related videos, movie reviews, talking about the TV shows.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that is it. We can just close it for here.
Yeah, we can close it here.
So, in the final analysis,
I'm in pain.
that
I
was
forgot how annoying this was.
yeah. It's a good thing that we ripped off the Band-Aid and chose the longer one first, so that next streams we could do the shorter ones. It's a good thing. But yeah, overall, like, this terrible video, not a very good one. Gets a lot of things wrong. I saw, I think it was Sea Monster that was comparing this guy to Mr. Who, which, I mean,
Anthony Vermuglia is a worse kind of. There is Anthony and Who. Anthony and Who. Anthony and Allo are two different kinds of wrong. So that's like a discussion we'd have to say for like another time, I'd say.
Yeah. Overall, I think he operates, Allo operates under this misanthropic, nihilistic paradigm. And Godzilla is basically like the only solution. It's almost, dude, I'm telling you, you might not agree, but it's downright cultish, dude. You might not agree, but it is. The way he talks.
I don't think it's. I wouldn't say cultish. Like, there are a lot of things I could probably class as cultish. I would just say like very like naive. Naive would be what I'd say. Fanatical would probably be the strongest word I'd use.
I would use fanatical.
Like,
yeah, I would
fanatical. Because cultish, I think because there's no tangible action that really comes with what he's proposing here versus like something I would consider cultish.
I think dedicating so much time and saying nothing for like 40 minutes and then continuing to make your channel and like continuously just say nothing over and over again for minutes, hours on end, like I would say that is pretty fanatical behavior. But yeah, overall, that framework ultimately informs his interpretation of 54. It's not a very good interpretation. It's very unethical, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that he's a bad person, but I don't think he is a bad person. I wouldn't know if he is or not. But the words coming out of his mouth hole are not very ethical in that sense. They're very misanthropic. Don't like that. I mean, I'm a human. I don't want to die yet. So, Sea Monster says, if you worship something like a god, why call it silly? That's a good question. I would say, that's actually a good question. You stumped me on that. Zim?
Like, if you worship something like a god, why call it? It's, well, because obviously it's not like an actual god in a religious sense. It's more of, it's a product, but it's a product that is essentially worshipped. And as a result, you treat it like a god, but you have like a weird, like, pseudo, what's the word I'm looking for? Parasocial relation, there it is, parasocial relationship that you're having with this piece of media that impacts your identity so much.
Yeah. I feel like he has to say that it's silly. I feel like he's, whenever people say these movies, I feel like whenever you say something like that, I feel like you
it's a deflection from criticism.
Yeah, you have to say it. Otherwise, you're going to have to justify why things make sense, which you can't. You can't always do that. Especially in a franchise like Godzilla. That is a downright Herculean task to try and convince someone that the Godzilla movies make sense. Even if there are some good ones, it would be incredibly difficult. So you kind of, sometimes you have to bite the bullet and say, yeah, no, this plot is very badly written. But he's not going to do that. That's why he didn't focus on that, I think. which is a shame because character identity is very intertwined with character writing and just writing in general. It's intertwined. It's the skeleton of your story, as I say. So, yeah. He does say in one of his videos that Godzilla is a perfect character, which is also in the thumbnail. But like,
there is no perfect character.
no, except Ryan Gosling, of course, because he's me.
He's literally me, bro.
He's just like me for real. We are Ryan Gosling. We carry the flame. We'll fight for the gospel.
Someone had called my store saying that, and I was just blown away that I actually heard that out in the real world.
The Charlie Kirk song.
Yeah.
Someone made an AI cover of that song, but like in the style of Devil May Cry. And it actually because I saw a comment that says the term AI slop presupposes the existence of AI gen.
He doesn't seem like he'd be good at explaining or claiming why a Godzilla movie is good if he were to be interrogated on it. Well, if you watch the Zimcast where he actually comes on to discuss his claims about -1, he isn't able to actually make a point.
How many times have you had him? Because I only remember the one.
He only came on once, and then he had some drama in the server, and then just really wanted to like find me at fault for it, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, I can't discuss things anymore because of X, Y reason. And I'm like, that's when I lost all respect for him.
No, yeah, you're gonna have to show me that because like this is what a bizarre character.
So far, it was like years ago. I think it's either a year or 2 years ago when that happened. So
yeah,
like you'd have to dig deep in the server, and I'm not even sure if it's still saved or not.
So like this man is a character. This man is a really bizarre character. But yeah, overall, that is our analysis. Video bad. That's it. That's all I can say. The video's pretty bad. Tune in next week, folks, as we will be discussing one of two things. Either it'll be a solo stream and I'll be discussing Doomsday, Avengers Doomsday, or the sequel to this, because I do plan on having this be a 3-parter, where we discuss 3 of his most important videos, which are all Godzilla focused. But yeah, overall, that's basically our final analysis. Tune in next week. And yeah, I am Blackaroonie. That was Zim over there, Zimzilla99.
It's me.
Yeah, and so you can find me on Twitter, although I don't post much. Rumble, I will be posting more music soon. Patreon, support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee. And also join my server if you want. No pressure. And I am working currently on that Moon Knight video, but also 3 more unscripted videos. 2 on Dune, one the David Lynch version and the other the Denis Villeneuve, and 1 on Zack Snyder, which is my most anticipated one because everybody loves Zack Snyder, obviously. Yeah, Zim, what are you doing?
Well, when I get off of this, I am probably just gonna have some food, maybe just relax for about an hour. Then I'm gonna be writing up some more kaiju shorts because those seem to always pop off. And then probably another like 5 or 10 minute video, probably discussing some more topics. I do want to cover 2014 specifically about its origins because I don't think that's something that's touched on as much and how it affects the greater MonsterVerse as a whole. So that might be something I'm working on, but I'm definitely working on some shorts and yeah, working on the book as well. And the Flash fiction, that stream is going to be Thursday this week. So stay tuned for that, guys.
All right. With that being said, I will see you all next time. And also notice how like my voice and my cadence, my disposition, it all like there was a point where I was like at 0 when we started the stream, then I went up 1, and then I went back down into the negatives where I was just practically, like, suffering in silence because I am still sick. And then as the stream went on, I started feeling better and better. Up until this point where I feel a lot better now, even though my nose is stuffy. But yeah, we apologize for and by we I mean me, I apologize for tech difficulties. Apologize for the constant coughing. I'm sick, but better to better to not let retards be retards than to let bygones be bygones. So
Exactly.
yeah, I will catch you all later, and I will check on the stream to see if it is acceptable. If not, I will re-upload an edited version. And yeah, cut to black screen.
Blacks.